Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with Ivan Ozerets.
Hello.
198. What we're going to do is...
Oh, it's 99. It's 199.
First time I've ever been wrong. I make more mistakes than anyone. Got to admit that you make the mistakes. That's how you become a leader. Blunder. Dennis Vandermeer. Don't be a muck-up. That's not swearing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We got a treat tonight. Going back to an oldie goldie, Eminem, Miron Mann. Known this guy forever.
Hello.
Miron Mann.
Hello.
Thanks for being a guest on the podcast one more time.
Hello, Miron.
Thanks for having me. Hey, guys. How's it going?
All good.
Miron, paint a picture for our listeners. Richmond Hill Country Club. Richmond Hill, Ontario, Canada.
All right. It's a beautiful club. 9 indoor courts, 11 outdoor clay courts, an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, a track, a fitness area, a yoga studio, a spinning studio, restaurants. Beautiful club, especially in the summer, I would say, once we get the outdoor courts, which I hope we're open this weekend. So,
and the summertime, don't you have
nice
Michael Silverman years ago, didn't he have a zoo?
No, not that I can remember. Just a big summer camp, like a summer kid camp, basically.
No, I thought they
had outdoor basketball court. I don't know about a zoo. That's news to me.
That was a long time ago. I first went there in, I think, 87. Oh, just a few rabbits, a few bunnies, maybe a goat.
Back then there was probably like no houses anywhere and so underdeveloped in that area. Now you probably wouldn't even recognize the surrounding area. It's just blown up. But,
petting zoo with some small ponies. No, I remember when Aurora, now it's a suburb, but I played hockey with Glenn Sisman from Aurora. That was considered way north of Toronto. That was country.
Oh, yeah. Not anymore.
Well,
not anymore.
With, I think I met you when you were 10, 11. Definitely you were in the 12s.
Yeah, I think 10.
10, okay.
10 or 11, definitely.
Tell the listeners why I call you, where I say that you should have been a stay-at-home defenseman.
Well, put it this way. When I would do fitness and running drills when I was a young kid, I would always finish in last place. So I was not the fastest person in the block. I'm pretty big. I have I would say probably like more of a football linebacker type body than a tennis player's body. Big shoulders, like 6'2", 6'3", and can't run very well. So I think I probably should have been a hockey player or maybe even a football player. Who knows? When I went to Utah, my first day, they thought I was on the football team, not the tennis team, on my recruiting trip.
Yeah, for the listeners, Miron plays college tennis at Utah. Originally from South Africa, how old were you when your parents brought you over, Lenny and Joy?
They brought me over when I was around 4 or 5.
Yeah, I could have got you on the skates. The reason I say that, big guy. And you certainly played to your size, so the way you would serve and go forward, big lefty, big serve. But you were so competitive. Listeners all the time have been around Miron. 2 8-year-olds were out playing. Miron's going to definitely 100% ask him what the score was. He's got the competitive juice.
Yep.
You're the director of the facility. Tell us about your coaching staff. How many coaches do you have?
Wow. So I have full-time, I have, I think, 8 full-time coaches. Then I have about 4 to 6 part-time coaches. So overall, you're looking at somewhere between, I think, close to 15 coaches, I would say, in all.
And plus you have some college players come back and help out?
Yeah, in the summertime, usually guys who kind of graduated from our program, we try to bring them back to help out in the summer. And a couple fitness coaches on staff. who are like under the tennis department. So it's a reasonable sized team, I would say.
With tiebreaker test 2, tell me about tiebreaker test 2. You and Mario Cosentino. Tell us, I should say.
Yeah. Me and Mario, we were like friends but enemies growing up. He was always a year older than me, and we would always kind of compete with each other. And, he would win a tournament, and then I would win a tournament, and we'd always push each other back and forth, but we practiced with each other a lot. To this day, I'm still really good friends with Mario. And him, myself, and his dad, we would go on the courts on weekends, like late at night, because it was hard to get courts. And we would go on courts like 6, 7, 8 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday nights. And Mario's dad, Frank, would just come out and feed us the tiebreaker test 2, which is basically stick the rope like 3/4 cord, and we just do it over and over and over a lot.
Yeah, you did it on your own, but shout out to Frank and Vita. Frank, he really helped you guys out. He coordinated all sorts of matches late at night as well. But the tiebreaker, so the 10 and under line works perfect, even pickleball lines now. So Miron and Mario, they would do on their own, get ropes out, and the rope goes halfway between the service line and the baseline. And, something that Andy Fitzell added years ago is that initially we taught people go cross court on the tiebreaker test. But then to help their technique on volleys is have all the balls go over the service line. But when you're doing it with the rope, all shots go over the far line with the exception of the overhead can go anywhere. Tiebreaker test 3. At one time we called that the Stanford test because one of our students, Craig Tiley, he couldn't get Stanford to, he'd call every year trying to put them on the schedule. And they had to climb the ladder a long time before they played Stanford and eventually beat Stanford. So we call it the Stanford drill. Now we call it the Federer drill. So you get one serve. You got to hit it where it goes. Actually, the pickleball nets that are in the back of the court now, most courts, if it bounces over the pickleball net, so it goes up 3-4 feet. And then they get a chance to go through the tiebreaker test. And then you crank the ball at them. It certainly is an interesting way to skill test. The feeder's not really making unforced errors. So an accomplished player thinks they're pretty good. They can lose 0-7. I one time had a mom step on the court and just tell me that is the worst thing that she has ever seen in her entire life. It's so belittling. It's so negative, hurting the kids' feelings. And the tennis parents can't live with them, can't live without them.
I'm guessing that kid quit tennis.
Another time I had a mom come out before we even got started, and it's too bad people think of us just as having people hit off a cone, but her kids were just getting filmed, her 2 daughters, and she saw kids hitting off the cone, and she just came up and said, "I'm taking my children." But yeah, she worked as an umpire, and it was about 3 years later she came back. She said, "You probably don't remember me." I said, "Yeah, I remember you." And she came back. Both her kids ended up playing small college tennis. They worked with us for several years after that. But she saw the hitting off the cone, and she was a little upset, to say the least. Here's something else. We'll get stories going. I've got down a number of things we can talk about. But if I've known you since you were 10, you're 4-0 yet?
Yeah, I just turned 40. Nope.
40.
This year. I turned.
Wow, congratulations.
I don't feel 40. I don't feel 40.
You feel younger, right?
I feel younger, of course.
That's good. Vic Braden's last book, If I'm 82, Why Do I Feel Like I'm 22? With Carlo Laosi. How would your juniors do with Carlo Laosi today? Carlo, never to call him Carlos. He's proud to be Italian. He went on and very, very successful in business, but he was very, very much your coach. How would the
Yeah,
juniors
like I
today
would
do
say,
with Carlo?
I would say Carlo was like an amazing character coach, like super demanding, super tough, like tough to a point where if he was probably working in a club today, I don't think some of the things he would say would even fly. Um, there's stuff that I probably shouldn't be saying what he was saying to us, but I think it made me definitely tougher. It made a couple of the juniors who grew up with me tougher. He forced me to go to this thing called Twin Dragons when I was like 12 years old. I went to it was like a kickboxing class, and there was me and actually Mario Cosentino. We went there, and we were around like 40 other men doing like shadow kickboxing when we were like 12 years old, and like these old men are like spitting on me and Mario in their back when they're shadowing, and it was just like I'm like, holy crap, what is going on here? And just like I would say it's just like put us in an environment where it's just like tough. Like it's just like I don't know, so many things were said. I remember losing a match one time, and he took me to like the back of the squash courts and just like laid into me and made me run for like days. And use profanity, lots of profanity.
Well, all Canadians are bilingual. They speak English and profanity. With Carlo, the front side of that story, I've been back and forth to work with the coaches, but I actually lived in Toronto for 2 years when my boys were playing ice hockey. They were very young. And I was in on this. So you and Mario, the parents show up and where are our sons? We didn't know. So Carlo, he just told you two guys to get in this car. And this is when he took you to this kickboxing class. So he goes in and he takes out $200 bills and he puts them on the desk and he goes, it will only take 5 minutes. I can't do it. I want to do it, but if I do it, I'll lose my job. I want just 5 minutes and I want somebody to beat the crap out of these two kids. So anyway, we have a meeting, and I guess I was the voice of reason way back when. I was the oldest person in the room, and so we have a meeting. We go around, and Carlo apologizes. He shouldn't have done what he did, and I said, "Well, the big thing is that I think all parents have done it when they're driving. They're upset with their children in the back seat. They're not looking straight ahead. They're just turning their head and giving the gears to the kids in the back seat." So I said, well, you shouldn't really get in traffic when you're upset. So so everybody went around and it was a done deal. And I said, well, everybody's ready to leave. I go, well, we got one more thing to talk about. And this was the best thing is that I said, well, he was wrong to take him to kickboxing without telling anyone, but he wasn't wrong in principle. And I think they should go back to kickboxing. You guys did, but I know that I think it was for 6 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
You say it was for 6 months. How long was it?
No, it was a long time. It was like, and every time we went there, I dreaded every minute. It's like horrible. It wasn't fun. It wasn't pleasant.
Yeah.
No, Carlo. Like I remember Carlo. He would give me lessons when I was like 14, and this is when he was trying to grow his business. And now, as you said, he's made a lot of money for himself. And I remember he would have a world phone and another cell phone. He would have two cell phones, and he'd call his one cell phone a world phone. And this was, if you've been to Richmond Country Club, it's the back two courts on court 19 and 20. And then this was when I was probably like 14. And he would just say, okay, you're going to hit serves for an hour. And he would talk on the phone. That was the lesson. And he'd say, go hit lefty out wide serves, pop the ball in front and go. And I hit serves for an hour, like 4 times a week with him. Basically, he was on the phone making money, and I'm on the phone just hitting serves for my lesson. But like looking back on it, it was probably like the best thing I needed because I didn't have the self-discipline to do it by myself. I just hit like so many serves, and he would just talk on the phone and make more money.
Now I could tell Carlos stories all day. Richard Hernandez sent him to the States to do an internship. It was much shorter than the one that you did, but Carlo goes to the Orange Bowl. I'm sure you were on the trip, and his mother had made some spaghetti sauce, and obviously a lot of pride in the spaghetti sauce. So you guys have you've rented a small villa. You get a number of players, and might have been just pick Sean Fine. I don't know who it was, but they're going to put ketchup on their spaghetti. And Admiral Laosi said, if you put the ketchup on the spaghetti, you will never see Canada again. With
oh yeah, on that trip, I remember going to the grocery store and I bought glazed donuts. And Carlo was like pretty strict on food. I bought like secretly, I went to the grocery store. I bought like glazed donuts. I'm like 13 years old, playing like Orange Bowl or Eddie at the time, and Carlo found out and he made me walk home in the middle of Miami, like 45-minute walk at night. Kicked me out of the car, and I was like petrified. I was petrified. Downtown Miami, I had no idea where I'm going, and he just threw me out. I was so pissed.
No, he used to say to your mother, Joy and Sandy, they were buddies, and he used to say, Steve, they got a day pass. They let them out today. They're out of the institution. They're with us today. But no, I was with you guys. I don't know where it was, Mayfair West or one of the tennis club in Toronto, and he wasn't happy. I don't know the way you guys played doubles or whatever, and he made you guys run whatever it was. You had to run like it was over 10 miles back to the facility, and he was just telling Mario's mother was there, Vita, you are not going to pick them up. You are not going to get in your car and go pick them up. They are going to run back to the tennis club. And, she goes, yeah, but they'll be on the freeway. He goes, they won't get run over. They'll be okay. I'll tell you one more Carlo story, but Richard Hernandez, who I've known forever, he's been a guest on the podcast. It's interesting. He was my student one time, but with Richard, it's Steve. Don't, the F word is flows sometimes. But Steve, don't you remember? The people aren't stupid. They're completely effing stupid. So Richard goes on vacation with his wife, and we really didn't need a third coach. But Myron Grunberg, who did a number of things, he was a general manager of that club at one time. He was not the captain, but he was a coach of the Davis Cup team. And to digress, I mean, he'd go up in the stands and say, Richard, what do you think? And so many great players have gone through Richmond Hill. So Myron, one time he was working as an agent. Another time he was running Roddick. So then with a group of coaches, they bought the Roddick Tennis Academy. So Carlo in practice, he's calling every junior a blank and a blank and a blank. Actually, just two blanks, blank, blank. You are a blank, blank. And then over and over again. So Myron's a little older than me, and he says, Steve, can you just join me for a few minutes and we'll talk to young Carlo? I go, yeah. So we go in Richard's office, and he goes, Carlo, I just don't think it's working. You're calling every kid out there over and over again, a blank and a blank. And so then, Carlo's maybe say 25, and Myron's 55, and Myron's done. And Carlo goes, Myron, you're a blank and a blank. And then I just couldn't stop laughing. And I remember Myron said, Steve, I was really disappointed that you didn't take my side. I said, hey, he's right. He's just right. But I in Canada, actually coaching juniors, I think you can get away with profanity a lot more here than you can in the U.S. I mean, the U.S. is so politically correct now. Yeah,
I think it's also different. Like we, I think with us, like where we run our program now, we have 5 courts. We run it on the top 5, like 3 through 7, and it's all glass. So you can't really hear much, like the parents are sitting up top and watching, but it's a little more private. And like parents able to in an outside setting where parents can like sit on the court and listen to everything, where we can raise our voice a little bit more, maybe than some other places.
With long winters in the Great White North. I was thinking about you the other day because I was watching the Tennis Channel, and VJ's son, Prakash Amritraj, he asked this young kid from Chile who beat Novak recently. I coached a kid from Mexico, Alejandro. So this young guy, how do you pronounce his last name? Alejandro Tabilo?
Tabilo? Yeah. Tabilo, yeah.
I remember this kid from Mexico. His name's Alejandro. And I hear that name, I got to sing it. Like the only way I can pronounce it, I'm going to sing it, Alejandro. So the kid says to me, hey, call me Alex. I said, okay, Alejandro. I mean, when you got a name like Steve Smith, Alejandro, I mean, that's a great name. So Prakash Armitage, he asked him about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, all right. And then the kid goes, well, I'm really into the Raptors. But for our listeners, I spent a lot of time with Miron. And Miron, am I right to say that you're not obsessed with hockey?
No. I unfortunately know more about hockey than most of your audience probably, but I'm definitely not obsessed with hockey.
Well, if you go way back with, if you wanted to find out what was going on in sports, you had to buy a paper. You had to read the paper to find out what happened the day before. Then cable TV came on the scene, and there was a 30-minute show that ESPN would have. And you'd have to wait all 30 minutes if you wanted to wait for the tennis score. It wasn't like there was 24/7 of the tennis channel. But for our listeners, Miron, he knows he knows hockey trivia. You just ask him questions that he should be able to answer. I don't think that's even close today because young people, it's like they have their own TV in their pocket and they can choose. It's not like there's one TV in the house and it's a cold, wet, rainy day outside, and okay, I'll sit in front of the TV for a little bit. You just pull out your phone and look up what you want. But tell us about this young guy. You spent some time with him. He grew up in Canada, even though now he's representing Chile.
Yeah, like I've probably known him since he was like 10, 11 years old. So I remember doing like a Tennis Canada national camp regrouping when he was probably 11, 12 years old there. And then I took him I was a provincial coach for Ontario, and I took him to nationals maybe 4 or 5 times. And then just kind of crossed paths with him over the years as he kind of got older and older. I think he came to Richmond Hill Country Club for like a training camp one time for a couple of days. I would say, to be honest, like I would have never thought like when he was like 12, 13, 14 that he would be like where he is today. He's going to be, I think, after Rome, he might be top 25 in the world, which is insane. Because when he was younger, when he was like 12 or 13, he was a little overweight. Actually, he was probably carrying like an extra 15, 20 pounds. But, lefty, a good field, good backhand, and just like an amazing competitor, like amazing. Like never shied away from any competition. Like a lot of times, like the juniors, they win 1 nationals here or 2 nationals here, and then they say, "Look, well, I'm not going to play nationals anymore." And I think I don't know how many national titles he has, but I would guess he has at least 6 to 10 Canadian national titles because he just never hid away from competition. Like he's playing under 14 nationals last year, 14. He's playing under 16 nationals last year, 16. And he just kept on winning. And now, when you see him on TV now, he's really thinned out and he's gotten fit. I think that's been the big thing. When he was younger, he was lacking the fitness, but he always had the passion to compete and the passion to play. And the family was all in too. He traveled with the brother, the mom, the dad. Like I don't remember ever seeing him in a tournament without his entire family. It was always a family affair when he traveled to tournaments.
When you said you took him to tournaments for 4 or 5 years, was that through your club, through the province, or through the national organization?
No, that was through the province. So like basically there's like 2 Canadian national events in a year. There's a winter one and a summer one. And I was the provincial coach for Ontario. So we took him, me and one other coach usually took him there for the week, basically. And we got arranged warm-ups and watched them compete and gave them some feedback and just hung out for the week, basically.
On the men's side, where is he age-wise? I know you traveled some with Felix, and then you actually were a hitting partner and traveled with Dennis. Is he older, younger?
He's I think 2 years younger than, I think Dennis is a year older than Felix, and I think Tabilo is 2 years older than Dennis. And then Felix is 3 years younger than Tabilo. So I remember watching Dennis play Tabilo at Mayfair Parkway Tabilo, I think, was last year under 18s, and Dennis was last year under 16s, and Dennis won that match at under 18 nationals in the finals. At that time, Dennis was crazy good.
Do you remember? Did he go back to South America? I mean, he's obviously playing Davis Cup for Chile. During his junior years.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't think so. Like, I think he was in and out of the national program in Canada for a bit. But he played nationals all the way up until 18. So if he went back, he might have gone back for summers and then come back and played. But he definitely played under the Canada flag for a while. I'm not sure what happened in terms of why he's representing Chile now, but he grew up as a Canadian for a long time.
Well, I know
his formative years were all in Canada.
I know at one point with Richard Hernandez, he had some deep connections with the Providence, but not the country. So I remember making videos for a number of players through Tennis Ontario, where Tennis Ontario paid for our services. Was he part of the of Tennis Canada? Do you know that?
He was. He was part of Tennis Canada. It was him. He was part of Tennis Canada, I think, when Bob Brett was there a little bit. So I think he was doing I don't think he was ever full-time, but I think he would go to Tennis Canada a little bit with Bob Brett. And I think his main rival growing up was a boy named David Wolfson. I don't know if you ever
for sure. Wolfson, he was at Richmond Hill at one point, right?
No, he was at Richmond Hill, He started at Richmond Hill, and then I think he went to Tennis Canada, and he circulated back to Richmond Hill from time to time. So I think he played tennis at Cornell. Wolfson.
Yeah.
And I think Davila and Wolfson growing up were rivals basically for a long time.
I remember doing video work for Wilson I was talking to someone just the other day, actually it was my son, and he's playing juniors, or he's playing some adult tennis now, Mikhail, who you know, and he, it's 20 some years later. And I said, well, I could look it up. I would have him on film, but we have a library of VHS tapes, some that have not been converted. We have DVDs, and I just told my son, this young kid, Dilip, he would definitely be on a DVD. But there's a chance that Alejandro Tabilo was videotaped.
I'm pretty sure we did an OTA thing, and I think he was part of that group. When we ran a regrouping for a weekend or two, I think we asked you to make some tapes for all the people who were invited to this OTA regrouping. And I'm pretty sure he was one of them who made a tape for.
Those videotapes. What comes to your mind when I ask about the group in Niagara Falls? Niagara Falls with Frankie Cosentino, and then the young coach, unfortunately tragic. He was number one in the NCAAs, lost his life in a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, Frank Dancevic and Bruno with Austinelli, right? Those two?
Yeah, I did video work for them.
Yeah. Well, Frank he's my age, right? So he owned me as a junior. I never beat him. I think he was always very good, back when he was 12, 13, 14. And I think by the time we were 14, he kind of separated himself from the rest of the pack, everyone who was around his age. And I think he went on to play top 50 tennis, maybe. I think he had a pretty good career. I think he was a little injury prone by the end. I actually saw him I spoke to him on the phone actually about a month and a half ago, because he's the coach on the Junior Davis Cup team now. And he took one of our players down there for Junior Davis Cup, actually. Someone actually.
Well, he's the captain of the Davis Cup team still, right?
The men's Davis Cup team, and he helps out with the Junior Davis Cup team. I think he works for Tennis Canada.
If our listeners,
they won the Davis Cup with him 2 years ago.
That's right. They
won it under him.
But it was a small group. I believe the coach's name was David Carter. Richard would
Doug Carter.
What is it?
Doug Carter.
Doug Carter.
Yeah, it was Doug Carter.
And he was open to having videos made. A lot of coaches are not open for outside influences. But anyway, Frank Dancevic, he's on our course, Tennis Intelligence Supply. He was, like a 12-year-old. He looked like a pro. His one-handed backhand. But he actually he had a win over Roddick, and he went 3 sets with Nadal. I think injury prone, but also too is that he ended up having too many coaches. That would just be my opinion. One time, going back to Myron Grunberg, Myron was coaching Frankie Danzovic, and they came to Richmond Hill. And listeners, before Miron was the director, Richard Hernandez was there for 30 years. So Myron says, Richard, could you help with Frankie's game today? Just take a look at him. Richard goes, yeah, sure. And he says, yeah, Frankie, come on in the office. So this time he's a full-fledged, top professional playing all the major events. And Richard said, I just want to have you to watch this tape. He goes, you need to hit the ball like the kid on this tape. And Frankie had no idea what Richard was doing. And he kind of looked at it. He goes, why am I watching this little kid? And Richard said, just keep looking at the screen. He goes, you need to hit the ball like this kid. And then Frankie goes, that's me. And Richard goes, exactly. Exactly. And I saw him years later, and it was during the NHL playoffs. It was Futures, and he was just starting to climb the ladder. And I said, Frankie, you think of course, people on tour call him Frank, but hey, Frankie, you think the Leafs are going to win? And of course, everybody in Canada knows that the Leafs are playing, and he looks at me. We're talking back and forth. He goes, "You're the guy from the video," but I didn't really work with him or with tell me
with Bruno Gossinelli.
But Bruno, he was so young. But I remember his father he is going to come to the net. He was just emphatic about he's going to come to
Bruno.
The
like
net.
Bruno, I remember when he was like 10 years old, he was serving and volleying at like 10. Like he was, and the dad was like adamant on it. Like he was just gonna make the kid serve and volley. And like that guy's one-handed backhand, the gift from God, super clean. Bruno's one-handed backhand. I think he got to number 1 in the world NCAA. Bruno.
Yeah, he was number 1 in the
Kentucky.
NCAAs. Yeah, in the NCAAs with.
And I think he started the Kentucky Canadian pipeline. I believe everyone all the Canadians kind of have followed Bruno now at Kentucky.
Yeah, don't you have a player who's going to go there next year?
Yeah, we got one going there next year. And what is that? I think they have like 5. I think they have 5 on their team currently too. So, and they got 2 more coming in 2 years. They keep bringing the Canadians over. I think it all started with Bruno, though.
Liam Draxel, his father Brian spent a lot of time. Both of them great guys. Brian, great competitor. He was so happy just to play. I remember him playing some great matches. But when Liam was very young, this goes back before his dad was bringing him up. Then Casey Curtis started helping him. But I remember working with him. He was an All-American number 1 at Kentucky for a long time. I have to say this about Mario Cosentino, though. It's been mentioned before, but so he finishes 3rd. He's a big kid from Quebec. He ended up playing at Georgia. That'd be
Stefan Timu.
Say it again?
That was his name. Stefan Timu was his name.
Yeah, he was a man-child. He was huge. And
he was like 18 years old at 13.
Yeah, shaving. He was shaving in the 12s.
Like a full-on beard. Like he was a monster.
So I met, I think it was Repentigny, I'm probably mispronouncing it, like Quebec at the national tournament. And so Mario's a year older than me. He goes, and it's a great tournament. He wins the playoff for 3rd place. And he's already had his warm-ups measured, and he's going to Tokyo for the World 14s. And all federations, I think, picked on. I think everybody turns to the federation and say, well, how can we complain? But this certainly would be a legitimate complaint. So the kid's ready to go. They're going to take 3 players, 1 coach. Sounds reasonable. So then Mario is informed that they're going to not take him, and they're going to take 2 players and 2 coaches. Anyway, I tell that story all the time because it's like, who's making these decisions?
Yeah, I remember that. That's terrible.
Well, we're going to stick with tennis. We've got a list of things here that we could chat on, keep it going. But we've had Chris Clore play the guitar and sing on our podcast. Fergus O'Rourke, the Irishman, he just did a ballad. He just sang. But let's go with number 2, and we'll call it the Canadian National Anthem. Are you ready? Hang on here for Miron. So we won't ask you to sing, but we're going to play the Canadian National Anthem right now.
No, thank God. Thank you.
Here you go. You ready?
Sure.
We need to have music on
I'm
the
ready.
podcast. We're such amateurs. You ready?
I'm ready.
That background music.
These days with love.
So there I was, over in Paris, eating wine, drinking cheese. This guy comes up to me and he
I don't know if
says,
that's the national
"Where
anthem."
are you from?" And I says, "Yeah, I'm from Canada." And he says, "C'est alors, bonjour. You are from Canada? Do you play hockey?" And I says, "Do I play hockey? Well, I play air hockey, ball hockey, bird hockey, bubble hockey, field hockey, floor hockey, ice hockey, kitchen hockey, room hockey, roller hockey, table hockey, twist hockey. And I play hockey, 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 all the time. Take shots. 3.
Second verse.
So there I was, way out in California, and this guy comes up to me and he says, "Where are you from, dude?" And I says, "Yeah, I'm from Canada." And he says, "Wow. Where are you from, dude?" And I says, "Look, I'm from Canada." And he says, "Wow. If you're from Canada, do you like play hockey, brah?" And I says, "Do I play hockey? Well, I play air hockey, ball hockey, bird hockey, bubble hockey, field hockey, floor hockey, ice hockey, kitchen hockey, room hockey, roller hockey, table hockey, twist hockey. And I play hockey, 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 all the time. Take shots. 2.
Last verse. Got to go the whole song. Just can't play this without playing the whole song.
So there I was, way down under in Australia. This guy comes up to me and he says, "Hi, where you from, mate?" And I says, "Yeah, I'm from Canada." And he says, "Too right, honey child. Ripper, you from Canada? Do you play hockey?" And I says, "Do I play hockey? Well, I play air hockey, ball hockey, bird hockey, bubble hockey, field hockey, floor hockey, ice hockey, kitchen hockey, road hockey, roller hockey, table hockey, twist hockey. And I play hockey, 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 hockey all the time. Take shots. 11. He shoots. He scores.
Miron, I'd have to say a highlight of my tennis teaching career was working with you and your buddies at Richmond Hill. I know the place has been renovated. Do you still have the gym? No. Remember the gym?
No, I wish. I wish.
I had so much fun playing street hockey with through a few elbows.
Oh yeah. No, we played. We would finish practice and we would go up to the gym after practice and play street hockey, basketball, any sport we could play up there. I remember that.
No, it was great. It's all beat up, an old place, and no one really used it, but the juniors. That's the way I looked at it, except for in the summertime, on a rainy
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
But,
that place is awesome.
Carl Hale is, big buddies with Richard Hernandez. He's the tennis director at Tennis Canada. I followed him at a place over in Japan. He was the director there, but I was just a traveling clinician. I was there many, many times over several years. Hubert Crash, who spent so much time at your facility, Richmond Hill. But Carlo had the kids in Japan playing street hockey, and they set up boards, and they did it for fun. It's great fun. But Carl, I don't know if I ever told him this, but he wasn't platooning. He had 20 kids and 10 playing against 10. I said, no, you don't do it that way. You got to count the numbers, and you just put like 3 out at a time, and then you change every 30, 45 seconds, just like they do in hockey. It's just great fitness. It's great fun. But I think the tennis coaches that are listening to this, you don't want to mark up your courts, but if you got the plastic nets and the plastic sticks and get the orange hockey ball, it's great fun on a tennis court to have some fitness playing street hockey.
Yeah, it's good fitness. And I think it's just good for like competitiveness, athletic development.
Yeah, I picked this up from Hubert Crash. He picked it up from the late David Schneider, and he played at Texas. We call it lightning ball. It's just basically it's a ultimate frisbee with a tennis ball. And Dave Anderson's been a guest many times, and people can get hurt. You're best to do it on an athletic field. So some kid got hurt and it came down from the boss, said no more lightning ball. So he goes, all right, everybody in here, I want to tell you about a new game called Thunderball. Same game, just a different name. Without mentioning any names, ice hockey, how many guys that you're coaching, not the gals, it will be nice to the gals, but how many guys if you had to jot down some names, your junior tennis players, because tennis is not a collision sport. It's not a contact sport. It could be a contact sport like soccer where you get an elbow. But if you had to go pen to paper, how fast would you write down names of guys that you're coaching that you think would do well in a collision sport or a contact sport? Like, how many would you put a hockey helmet on and say, go in the corner and get the puck?
Not many.
Yeah, that's
not many. Under 5 for sure.
And you have a program. A program of 500. You have a large program.
We have a large program. Like I couldn't count on one hand how many I would trust going in the corner. They might go in the corner, but they won't come out of the corner.
What's the name of the famous football player? Played for Carolina, quarterback, Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Where there was a fumble and he just looked at it. He didn't dump. I
don't remember that.
He didn't jump on the fumble. But again, this has been mentioned, but I had a couple South Africans and they didn't play basketball very well. So we're in a gym and I thought we would play 2 sports, but it ended up being 3 sports. I thought I was going to be creative, have it be 2, but turned into 3. So I said, all right, we'll play with a soccer ball. We'll play soccer. Then when the ball gets in the lane, then you can play basketball. Because the guys couldn't dribble, they couldn't pass, and didn't really know the game. But it actually turned into 3 sports because once the soccer ball went into the lane, it's what I don't know how wide it is, but the rim's 10 feet up and the lane goes back 15 feet. It turned into rugby. It was just a scrum. It was so great. These tennis kids, just the ball would go in the lane and they just start diving on a hard surface, a wooden gym floor. But no, we've got lots of notes here in front of us. One thing that we've done, in fact, I was running errands today in Charlottesville. We drove down the mountain. It's a beautiful place. It's sort of 45 minutes away. Great little town. But I've been in several times to watch both the men and the women. That's one thing we could talk about. I have actually a list of 126 messages. We're communicating with Andy Fitzell, his most recent assignment. He's traveling on the WTA tour with Diana Schneider. And one of your juniors was here. We have a list of 170 points, but let's go with UVA. Yvonne's got some notes, and I know in talking to you, I was so impressed with, for our listeners, I'm talking to you about these 2 girls that are fun to watch, play for UVA. Beautiful place, beautiful facility. They play at Boar's Head. It's a resort. It's about 10 miles from the university. It's like utopia. And So our listeners, Miron still has a very good handle on how these girls played when they were 12. But why don't you share a few notes from the college matches? Yvonne, why don't you start?
Yeah, no, I like from UVA. I think they have two Canadians. I think one of them, Annabelle Zhu. I think she plays like top of the lineup, one or two, and then a girl, Melody Collard, who plays I think like 5 or 6.
Yeah,
I think they're both around the same age. So like when I was like, I think they might even be around Fabilo's age or somewhere in that little time frame. I remember going to nationals and they were always one of the better girls. And I just vividly remember like Collard being like so fun to watch back then, like super athletic, like would go to the net, would serve and volley, would just play different than like 98% of the girls you generally would see, especially in junior tennis. So I like always liked watching her, and she's kind of like, very like athletic and sporty. And then Annabelle Zhu, she was just always just like a ball striker, just a banger from the baseline, basically. Like I don't know if she still plays like that, but she was pretty much like a one-dimensional banger when she was younger. But she's a tall girl, right? Isn't she? Or they both might be kind of.
They're both from Quebec, right?
Yeah, they're both. One's from Gatineau. She trained at an academy under like a private coach in Gatineau, I think, all the way up through. Her brother actually, Melody Collard's brother actually plays at Michigan State. And then the other girl, Annabelle Zhu, her sister, I think Naomi Zhu, might be going to UCLA next year, maybe. So they come definitely from tennis families.
No, that's so interesting. Here's a question for you. Quebec and Ontario. Flip of a coin from year to year, or is one province a little bit stronger than the other in tennis?
Yeah, I think it's all like kind of cyclical. I think like some years it's Quebec, some years it's Ontario, and it just kind of ranges by age groups. I don't think there's like a rhyme or reason for it. It just kind of goes up and down like that. Although I would give Ontario the upper hand, to be honest. That might just be my bias.
The numbers are on your side. Much larger city, Toronto, right?
Yeah, definitely.
One thing with the national tournaments, and it's been many years now, but the national tournaments, Canadian tournaments that I've been to, it seems like there's more unity with the kids from Quebec. Maybe that's because of the language, that they seem to stick together, travel together. They're at the tournaments together.
Well, they have a rule, though. Like Quebec has a rule that when you go to nationals, that the parents can go, but they can't stay in the room with the kids. So the kids have to stay with other kids, and the provincial coach has to oversee that and basically like make sure the kids are going to bed on time, and they don't have parents in the room. So they actually go and travel more as a team rather than like when I traveled with Ontario, the parents would stay with the kids. So it wasn't really our responsibility to check up on them, to make sure they came for breakfast. It was just like, set up warm-up times and make sure they're at a warm-up time. But it wasn't, I think that helps build like the more of a team culture.
Yeah, I mean, that's so common. That's so common in Europe. The parents can go, but they go as a team. They're hanging out. You lose and you're there and you support the people that are still in. You may chart, may just serve as a practice partner, help run some errands.
Yeah, I think it's nice. Like I think it's a nice thing.
Yeah, I think it
builds way more culture, right?
Yeah, you have to build relationships, but again, finding ways for people to become independent. Instead of mommy and daddy doing everything.
100%.
What thoughts you have on some comments from the tournament? Or they were actually, we saw was some dual matches earlier in the year. Then we went to the round of 16 for the men and the women. The men played South Carolina. The women played Vanderbilt.
Correct. Yes. First of all, what a facility. It's just like, whoa. It's like out of a dream. It's amazing. There's a huge golf course, and I think there are, I'm not going to count in my head, but tons of indoor courts, the outdoor stadium that they have there. And then they have clay courts as well. And then more outdoor courts that I think have been converted to pickleball courts. So the Boar's Head tennis facility, I believe it's called. It's huge. Really nice place. So a few notes that I took while we were watching the men's and the women's. So men's will happen on one day, women's happen on the other day. the crowd for the men's side was quite, I'd say 30% larger than the women's. A lot of staff at the event, quite a few staff. You're there and you realize, okay, this is a big deal. I mean, there are people with shirts that say NCAA on them. They have professional. It had rain just before the match started, so they're out there with, 10, 12 different blowing machines and to get the water off the court sooner and faster. And the men's match actually was interrupted by rain quite a number of times. And the locals were like, "Oh, it's going indoors, it's going indoors," and they all rushed off from the stands to go inside because they had assumed it was going indoors. And as soon as that happened, like on cue, the rain stopped, it dried up, and it was amazing. Like a couple seconds, just the course just soaked up the water, and they started playing right away. And the locals, I'm assuming that they were locals because they seemed to know what was going on. Not today. They started rushing back out. Oh, the match is still back out here, and that happened actually 2-3 times, which was interesting. So the crowd, yeah, I mentioned the crowd was big support for Virginia. Obviously, home team advantage. I mean, the opposing team, South Carolina, they'd win a point and it'd just be crickets, just silence, just nothing. And then Virginia would win a point, just wow, eruption. We watched their warm up. Their warm up was, I'd say, quite standard. A few points where they warmed up with soccer in the beginning. They had a soccer ball out there. Everyone seemed to know how to juggle a soccer ball. And they had this quite Virginia on the Virginia side. They had a quite intimidating warm up, meaning like no rackets, just getting their bodies warm. Where they're all on a line, all of them, and their team's huge. I'd have to guess like 14 people on their team, just from what I saw, because they were all like warming up together. It could be some red shirts mixed in there, maybe some coaches jumped in, but they were all wearing the same white shirt. And they're all on one court, and they all stood on the double sideline, and they all did the same warm up together in sync. So no one was out of sync with one of the exercises. And they went through a few standard exercises, but there was like this wall of white just going back and forth. It was quite intimidating. And they had the standard warm up to get all that there, down the lines, cross courts, volley, up, one back, serves, returns. Then they actually did some doubles drills where it was 3 players in and 1 coach at the net, and the coach would feed the ball in and they play the point out from there. And then they play some just straight doubles points. So that's how they warmed up. It was interesting. It was about a 45 minute warm up to an hour with the rain and such. And they started the match. I'm just going down my nose here. They started the match like doubles first, very first point. And I mean, very first point. They just yelled as loud as they could, Virginia. I remember we were watching, we were right on in between court 3 and 2 for the doubles, and court 1 was off to the side. We could see all 3 matches, great seating at these courts, 6 courts in a line. First point of the match, just, Virginia wins the point. I think it was a shank off a return or something. And one of the teams, Virginia teams, is just like, yeah, like as loud as they can. First point, college atmosphere. So it's like you got to get used to that for the first little bit.
And it's almost like like after every point, it's that way.
Yeah, and that continued. It just set the standard, and I think they're trained like that. But it was just for someone who's not accustomed to that, it's surprising. Like first point, like really, So a couple points. What was that?
I was just laughing. I can imagine it.
No, I mean, it was surprising.
What are your thoughts on that, Miron? I know you played college tennis. I see players that are not in the lineup. They're just, which is great. They're cheerleaders. I mean, I would do it Jim Verdict style. I would have people filming and charting, and I think that leave that up to the fans. When someone's playing number 1 doubles and they just all of a sudden they yell out, "Let's go number 3 doubles," But I wouldn't want to take away from the spirit of it. But it's what are your thoughts on that? The players cheering.
I would say I was like one of those guys who were loud and feisty. So like I look back and I enjoyed it. I think that's something that like makes college so special, right? Like all these junior kids, they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. They're so used to someone says one word to them and they freeze in the moment. And if they were put in a college tennis environment, it would be like a holy shit moment. Like,
Yeah.
Fans are talking crap to them, yelling at them, cheering against them. And, so I like it. I don't know about the guys on the bench doing it, but, I think it brings like amazing energy.
Yeah, all the people I've worked with, so many, and my students, it's amazing how people say they look back and the greatest time of their lives playing college tennis. And I think that's another thing with juniors is that they haven't played for something bigger than themselves. Actually, one of your players was here with the mom, and this amazing story. The mom, it was on one of the previous podcasts. She won the last match out for her team to beat Duke. Her team being Texas, and the next day they won the NCAA championship title, team title. She doesn't win on the day before. They're not in the final. Did you play? That must come to your mind. You play any 3-all matches yourself? Or your last match out?
Oh yeah, like so my senior year of university, I was a 5th-year senior because I redshirted in the middle there because I tore my labrum in my shoulder. So I was a captain, and I kept on telling the guys, like, just get me to a 3-all match, like get me there. I wanted to be on the court in a 3-all match, and all year it just never happened. So it was our final match of our regular season. We're playing our rival BYU in BYU at the time, and if we win the regular season conference, and we hadn't won the conference in 25 years or something. So, I'm playing, it's 3-all, the match comes down to me. I win the first set. I think I'm serving at 6-5 in the second set. And the coach, his name was F.E. Robbins. He's retired now, but he's on the changeover and he's like, Miron, are you okay? I'm like, and I could feel his nervous energy. I'm like, dude, you gotta leave the court. I'm fine. Don't worry. I got this. And I just remember this is so vivid. Like first point, I'm like, I step up to the line and I'm so nervous. And I was like pretty chilled out as a competitor, but like my arms were like shaking. And I like shanked the second serve double fault. Next point, I'm like so nervous. I shanked another, like a double fault again. And my serve was my best shot. I was so nervous though. And I looked over at my team and I'm like, guys, I got this, don't worry. And I just hit I think 2 big aces and like a big serve, maybe a good volley. And the next point is 40-30. And I'm just like, okay, I missed my first serve. I'm like, I gotta get the serve in somehow, a second serve. And I might have hit like a 40-mile-per-hour second serve. And the guy misses a return and we win the conference. That was like my last 3-all match, and that was basically the end of my tennis career. But it was a nice way to go out.
Your game was suited for high altitude.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Well, actually, that wasn't the end of your playing career. You came, you did an internship with us right afterwards. You got really fit. Tell the story about being at a tournament and asking the lady if you could play. Because I think what happens to so many players, you didn't have the exposure. You didn't realize that the next step up, playing college tennis and playing futures, that's not that big a step. Playing college tennis and leaping up to the ATP or even the challengers, but the futures. But tell us the story about you, asking the lady if you could play and you qualify. And
yeah, like I think it kind of started when I was down working for you, Steve, and I took I think Connor and maybe Peter Cobelt, maybe, I can't remember, but I took a couple of guys to the futures and I'm like sitting there charting the match. And I think Connor might have lost first round, and I'm just like watching the match and I'm like in my head, I'm like, these guys are not very good at the time, right? I'm just thinking I'm watching Connor lose to this guy. I'm like, how is Connor losing to this guy? And then, that was like 6 months. And then I came back. I was playing a lot when I was down there, just serving my internship with you. So I got fit and I lost a lot of weight. I came back. I went out and I watched a futures event out at York University. And I'm looking around. I'm like, the level, this is not good. I think I can play at this level for sure. So I go up to the head tournament referee, and I knew there was a futures next week. I go to the guy, I go listen, I want to sign up. Is there any way I can still get into this tournament? And I think he told me I have to go, speak to the tournament director. I go speak to the tournament director. They put me on a list. I get into qualifying. I qualify for the tournament. I win my first round match against a guy who ended up playing at Northwestern. And then I lost like 6-4 in the third to this guy named Chris Kligman. I think he played for Ohio State. He got as high as like 400 in the world or something. And that was like my only futures tournament I ever played, but I got points there. And that was it. That was the end of my pro career.
There you go. Actually, Connor, when you did
self-belief, right? I think it's self-belief. It's all just like, I didn't think I could play at that level until I saw it, kind of.
Yeah, I think
from a coaching perspective, it's all just
obviously geographically, Canada, same as the U.S., big countries. I do think a European kid, for example, it's easier for them to have a sense of belonging because they see tennis. Actually, your internship, Connor had not gone to college at that point, but yeah, I do remember there was there was a futures that in Tampa in May. So yeah, I remember that.
It was on the clay court. It was on the clay court at some club. Yeah.
Harbor Island. A few things on the match. UVA, what do you got, Ivan?
Yeah. Let me continue with my notes here. The tallest guy on the Virginia side, at least, that was playing doubles, stayed back for doubles. He did a certain volley. I looking across the doubles course, I remember one. I noted down that there was one player, and it wasn't on the Virginia side. It was on the South Carolina side that served and volleyed consistently, and not 100% of the time. But these huge athletes that are just specimens physically and like warriors mentally, they just stay back and they grind it out. It's a lot of touch volleys, I'd say, and not a lot of dry volleys, the continental grip and such. A lot of playing not to the middle, out to the outside, trying to like finesse their way through a point. So it was tough to watch the doubles in that sense. Virginia actually ended up losing the doubles. So they lost the doubles point, but then they won the 4 singles. So Virginia did win. A lot of running around the backhand volleys, and on when they were just from so they're serving one up, one back. They'd be in a backhand to backhand rally, but they turn it into a forehand to forehand rally, even though even though they were on the backhand side. It's silly watching them do this half circle constantly, and then they're recovering, constantly running around their back. You just hit a backhand, you're there, hit a backhand. I mean, it's just frustrating to see them do that because, there's so many people watching this, and it's like, oh, these guys are great. That this is how you play high level at a high level, and they're just like 2-3 feet behind the baseline, playing one up, one back doubles, running around their backhand in a backhand to backhand in the backhand corner, hitting forehand to forehand, and it's like, what are we doing here? Yeah. And then when they do end up coming in, they have continental grip. They swing down, and it's a float slice. They don't a float volley. They don't hit it to the middle. They hit it to the outside, and everyone starts clapping at the end of a big long rally, and it's like, that's not a point that that should be clapped for. I mean, that wasn't that much of a great point. I mean, there were so many mistakes tactically, but there was a lot of excitement, yelling and such, big hitting, players and people and parents that are not, I'd say, into the game as much from the tactical side. They don't know, let's say, the dimensions and all that stuff. They don't know the efficiency behind it, and out of the efficiency comes the tactics, and they just see that hit ball, hit ball, and if the ball's hit big, that means it's good playing. So that's unfortunate, and that is going on, and it's very apparent. So getting into the singles as well, a lot of East and West play. So when I mean, we have the term walking the plank. They're just going along the baseline, left and right. Why? Well, so many reasons. Horizontal swings. They pull open rack face in the backhand for most of the players. Not a centered ready position. Just looking to bang a big forehand, for example, running around their backhand, like I said. And so they're playing East and West, and they're not they're not accustomed, they're not used to, they're not willing to, they're not looking to come forward because all they know is hitting big groundies. So when they end up coming to the net off of a drop shot most often, or actually the number one for the Virginia team, and I would say this is why he does play number one, is because he did look to come in not in stages, but just off a huge ground stroke. Like he hit a huge serve. He's a tall man. Yeah, I guess he is now, man. He's in college. He hit a huge serve. He'd get a short ball. He'd still be in the offensive area, the red zone, so just barely in front of the baseline. Hit a massive ground stroke. Runs around the backhand, most likely. A huge ground stroke, huge forehand to the corner, and then runs in. At least he's looking to get in. And he does end up most often finishing off the point from there. But even so, they don't cut. I mean, when they're up there, they're out like a fish out of water. They don't know that, the percentage play, cover the line because that's the high percentage pass. Looking at your opponent's racket face, if they're going to drive or lob, their ready position is low towards the net. They don't cut off the angles at a V at the net, for the volleys. A lot of passing shots that roll pass, cross court happens a lot. So just things you see where it's like, yeah, this is great high level, but it could be so much better. There could be so much more all court tennis, I'd say. And it's all court tennis is so much more interesting to watch because when there's a good all court point that's played, which is rare, you see it and you're like, whoa, that's unusual. Like that's not something that happens very often where someone, hits let's say a ground stroke in the neutral area of the red zone to percentage post and they're on the run and, they're in one of the 4 weak positions where your legs are crossed and your rackets up high, legs are crossed, rackets around low on the forehand and backhand side. So that's 4 positions. And then they go forward, they hear footsteps. That doesn't happen very often. And when it does, you're like, whoa, that was a good play. Like you just intuitively just kind of, that. But they don't play that like that all the time. One of the players, last name Sarr, Sarr for South Carolina. I mean, it's amazing. He had no topspin on his backhand. It was just, aliens everywhere, flying UFOs, as we would say. He just didn't have a topspin backhand. So that's another reason why he would revert to running around the backhand as often as he could. I mean, his forehand was great, but he'd get a backhand and it just be a nothing ball. And why it's a nothing ball is because he doesn't hit it. He runs around it. So, not many people. It was hard to find a player there on either team that played in the pocket. And by that, listeners, we mean, if it goes to the forehand, you hit a forehand. If it goes to the backhand, hit a backhand. You're not running around everything. You're staying in the pocket. You want to keep your opponent in the pocket. If you're running east and west, you're not going to play north and south. You want to play north and south because you want to take advantage of, the dimensions of the court. You get closer to the net, you have more potential angle, and you want to hit volleys and overheads. It's fun to hit volleys and overheads. So it's tough to see that kind of play, and you didn't see it often. A lot of hitting to where the opponent isn't. So, oftentimes, you can squint your eyes and you can just see kind of the ball and the players. And you can imagine it's almost like junior tennis in a way because, players over here, they're going to hit a big ball to this side, even though it's tactically not the right, I'd say not the right play at that time. Let's say they're in a baseline rally and they're trying to obey the directionals. They're not trying to pass, change direction off a ball that's coming in, cross court to down the line if they're behind the baseline, let's say. It's a common tactic that, directionals, Paul Wardlaw, who we had on as guest here, but they'd still pull it if the previous shot got the opponent off the court quite wide. They'd still try that shot just because, it's just feels like junior tennis is what I'm going to say at points, at some time. So it doesn't feel like they're playing the court. It really does feel like they're playing their opponent. It's like, oh, opponent's here. I'm going to hit it over there. And that's doubly true when they're at the net. Oh my gosh. When they end up at the net, which is infrequently, but when they do, the players playing singles, Virginia versus South Carolina, when they do, it's almost a guarantee they're going to volley. If they get a volley to the open court, it doesn't matter where they are on the court, they're going to volley to where the opponent isn't. And more often than not, they're not playing chicken liver. They're playing people that are fast, and they're playing, the round of 16 at the NCAA. So they're going to get there, and then they have the open court to cover, and they don't cover it. So a lot of the times it's finesse volleys that finish off the points. I didn't see one drive volley hit. Oh, that's not true. I saw one, but it was like up in the air, and it was quite an easy put away volley. But we always, I'm rambling, but just from what I saw, we often say, hey, a good match to watch if you want to get inspired is U.S. Open 2004, Andre Agassi, Sampras, I think it's quarters, I believe. And Sampras comes in every ball, and he's getting balls that are at his shoelaces, and he's driving balls that are at his shoelaces. And it's great that the U.S. Open in that match specifically they had court level coverage on a lot of the points, and you just see it's like you never see someone hit a volley from like that low, close to their shoelaces and drive it. And I didn't see one like that at this NCAA NCAA match. I mean, it was great. People were hitting big balls, big serves, but it's like, if you really break it down, if you really watch a lot of film, if you really watch a lot of tennis, and like I said, break it down, I don't want to be demeaning and say it's junior tennis, but it just feels like I'm just going to hit the ball big, just like we were kids, and just at a higher level, just bigger and bigger in general, everything bigger, and just hope I win. And I can say that when I was younger, that's all I knew. Before I found out about Steve, the information and all this, that's all I knew as well. Like, I was never taught any of this. And so I thought, so just hit the ball bigger and you'll get better. I had no concept of that, but being on the other side now, gratefully, it's difficult to watch that. Difficult meaning there could be so much better. They could be so much better. They're already great. They're already these, again, like I said, mental just warriors and physical specimens. They could be so much better. And the tennis, they could be better. And the spectators can be watching better tennis. So all this. Few more points. Stop me anytime. But there's this one podcast I listen to on YouTube. Alex Kovacevic. Top 100 player right now. He played Djokovic. He had an interview on a podcast on YouTube, and he was talking about his first round match at the French Open against Djokovic, and he lost in 3, I believe. I think he had one tight set, but he did lose. And he mentioned how Kovacevic mentioned how the level difference is astounding when you play Djokovic. Meaning that he described, and what I wrote down was, it felt like, even though Djokovic, it felt like he could hit a winner from the second or third ball, he would play the point out long enough to where he can hit a winner by hitting the ball in the middle of the court. Like, that's the quote that I picked up off that podcast, which is just like, man, that just shows you that Djokovic is willing to stay in the rally for as long as it takes to get the right ball to just, okay, now I'm just going to hit to the biggest target possible. And it happens to be a winner just by how the point was constructed. And watching these Virginia matches, it wasn't like that at all. It was just like, I'm going for this 3 foot by 3 foot target in the corner here. I'm aiming for this line off of the 5th ball, because it feels like they were impatient or such. It didn't, thinking about those matches, there weren't very many, I'd say, rallies past 10. Not too many. I mean, there were, and once in a while, it's like, wow, that was a great rally, but it didn't feel like that was the standard. It felt like the standard was a lot less. They hit a lot of the players. I won't say most, but a lot of the players really drift far behind the baseline, and it happens gradually throughout the point. It's like, oh, I hit a weak shot. We call that a minus. Okay, they take another step back. They rally from there. They don't really get close to the baseline, and they hit another minus. Oh, I'm gonna take another step back, and they end up being like, they can like turn around and touch the back fence. That's how far they are behind the baseline, and I mean, that's not conducive to a north and south play. Like I mentioned, they're not getting to the net anytime soon. So it's very baseline heavy, and that's just the standard. And that's just the standard right now, I guess. And it's it's unfortunate to see that, because it'd be great to see tennis play. When I get to the doubles, I'll mention one girl who, at some points, she played exactly like that. I'll just mention it right now. The number 6 player for the Virginia team, I think she was the last match out. She was, yes, and she ended up winning it for the it was 4-0 match. So she was the last match, and she played this girl from Vanderbilt, line 6,
In Aussie, yeah.
and she they were drifting so far back behind the baseline, because it was almost like they were looping the ball, and it's like, we call them wounded ducks, where the ball is just nothing in the air, and you can just that's another note I had. Conventional approach volley, the ball's in the air and just come in, go deep down the middle, and make them pass you. That doesn't exist anymore. Oh, I hit the microphone. That doesn't exist, especially watching these matches. Like, that never happened. But watching this line 6, why I bring that up is, eventually, just through sheer, that's what it felt like to me, my opinion, is just through sheer annoyance. It felt like she was like, I'm just going to take this ball, because it was so loopy and high up in the air that it was a nothing ball. She ended up, it happened on match point, and it happened many points before that as well, where it's like, this ball's so high, what am I doing backing up? It felt like she realized that in midpoint and just came in and started volleying, and ended up winning most of the points like that. And her opponent didn't have much of an answer.
That's the Canadian girl, though, right?
Yeah. Collard.
That's Collard, right? Yeah, that sounds like Collard.
Yeah. No,
but I think it's like the habits, right? Like, that girl, at least out of all the girls when she was younger, she was at least going in a little bit. Like,
well, you said earlier, she moves. Yeah, she moves well, and she was coming in, but I think in the heat of the match, Freud's return to the womb concept, kids can go back to the 14 and unders, they can go back to the 8 and unders, and it's like, I think to me, so many comments. What Yvonne was just saying is that and you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of pressure, trying to close out a match, and it's a lot easier to be the armchair quarterback. But a couple thoughts, you can pick that back up. But when you were in college, Miron, what was the doubles format? I mean, did you play a pro set to 8? Did you play 2 out of 3?
Yeah, it was 8. It was up to 8.
Yeah, it is entertaining for the crowd. I think what Yvonne just went through for our listeners. He's 24 years old, and he's been studying the game for, I guess you've known the GreatBase and the content we put together for, say, 3 years, but you've been here a year and a half, day in and day out. You know those 18-hour days, right, Miron? And
I'm well aware of them.
But in all fairness to the women, the men are playing. It is here. It is not like it got to the point where at least one team was, for the most part, being aggressive and going forward. But I do think there's so much to learn, and playing to 6 for me. I mean, philosophy comes into it, but I'd like to go with physics. I mean, facts. It's kind of a flip of a coin. I mean, it is entertaining. It's like, who's going to win that? For the listeners, they're playing 2 out of 3 doubles, playing to 6, no ad. I mean, 8's not even divisible by 4. But to me, I would just say, hey, we're playing doubles the right way. You were with us when we had the junior college tennis team, and every girl served and volleyed both balls. I mean, if you know tennis, I mean, you really only have to cover 15 feet. If your partner's being aggressive, it's 36 feet. No, I think Yvonne said it many times, being polite, that they are warriors and they are physical specimens. But no, when you look at the doubles, and I do feel sorry for college coaches. I mean, because they inherit kids that have played at least a decade, and I really respect people. I mean, we take kids and we pick people up at the airport and drop them off. I've been through that facility to give like a 15-minute tour. I don't know how many times, and I know you've done it more than I have. I really respect the fact that how hard they have to work to get to that level. I mean, there's only 3 out of 100 juniors will play college tennis, but to play at that level is very international. And when you're you're 18 years old, you'd be playing against a 23-year-old, give or take. And that's like going to a tournament the last year of 14s. They're competing against 16s and 18s. But no, for sure, drifting behind the baseline, going to the open court, changing the direction of the ball. And, as Braden would say, it's not so much the continental grip on the volley, but when you come in and the angle of the racket faces up, that could be from the faulty grip. It could be from the elbow in. It could be just have a big backswing. It could come down to the fact that the ratio balls hit. You've hit so many ground strokes compared to how many volleys you've hit. And there's some lost arts for sure. You mentioned that Sampras.
I think they're also taught. I think they're also taught that though. Most of them are taught to like chop down the volley.
Say that again.
I would say, like,
they're taught what?
I would say most of the kids are probably taught to just chop down on the volley.
Oh no, definitely from day one. I mean, the faulty grip.
Yeah, day one.
Knife it.
Chop it.
Yeah, cut it, knife it.
With
I'm watching. I'm at a national camp, and one of the coaches is showing the video of Sinner hitting volleys, and I'm to the kids, and I'm just like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He's like, if there's something Sinner could maybe do better, it would be volley. That's amazing, but still.
Yeah, one thing, Yvonne has watched a little bit of ice hockey with me. The podcast Spit and Chicklets. Paul Bissonette said earlier today, we're watching hockey before we came on the air, and he said, I was a fourth line plug. And, he's talking to somebody else who's on the panel, and he goes, but you were a player. Someone with my skill set, I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. And this a dose of honesty from hockey. I mean, tennis, tennis people, they don't really have a BS filter like they do in ice hockey. But no, college men's tennis is juniors tennis. And come on, if you go forward, you're playing doubles, that's going to help your singles by going to the net. But no, serving, staying back, playing east and west, everything he just went through. With the term UFO means the ball is rotating like a frisbee, and you might as well just wave your arms and go, "I have no backhand." And with Djokovic, for the most part, he's staying in the pocket, and he's close to the baseline. Sure, he can slide over and hit forehands, but no, I think that the finesse and then and again, volleying to the open court. But in junior tennis, does the consumer have consumer knowledge? Are they blindly writing checks? And then is there product knowledge? And to me, if you have a player for 4 years, we heard that quite a bit in junior college. I spent 15 years on one junior college campus and 10 on another. And I've heard so many people say, well, you just can't make those changes in 2 years. I mean, they would think 4. And it's like, no, we're going to change it in 2 minutes. We used to have a playoff where we'd have ghost doubles. I remember telling 2 Swedes, I was running this team on an interim basis. We were hired. I was at one school for 10 years, and there was 3 coaches. So there's 2 different times where they were doing a search for the coach. So one semester I ran the team, and there were 2 Swedish players. And we're having a deuce court tournament. Deuce court ghost doubles. You have to serve volley. And these 2 Swedish kids were staying back. I said, hey, you guys have never been in a war, but Sweden might be in a war. If you guys don't serve volley. And we would, okay, who's the best deuce court player? Who's the best ad court player? And we're talking about blended lines on a tennis court now with pickleball. It should be the 10 and under. But there should be a line all the way down the center of the court. No, it's a crisis. I mean, and I do think, Dave Secker, he mentioned in our podcast, Simon Ershaw, who he works with, how many kids out of Virginia have played big time tennis. And you've got Danielle Collins, you got Emma Navarro. There's players that have played on the tour, and they actually have, you'd have to go through it, but they have some people at Virginia that played big time doubles. And, I do think that, like what's a Bob Bryan going to do with the U.S. Davis Cup team? It wasn't too long ago. Rajiv Ram was either 1, 2, or 3 in the world. And Marty Fish, who's no longer the captain, I don't know if that's the reason, but he didn't select Ram to play doubles. And he had, I believe it was TFO, Fritz, and Tommy Paul. Well, maybe that makes sense because if there's 4 of them, they had Jack Sock. say, well, they're all going to play, one ball and blast, serve, stay back, blast. And, but I don't think it's tennis math also too, is that, I know Ty Tucker, you're playing for the Ohio State, and what's better is a freshman's backhand volley or the guy banging ground strokes. But I think you got to fix the backhand volley. But people generally coming to the net, one, they don't have you think about math, they don't have the reps. They haven't been up there. But they have poor technique. I mean, you mentioned not only running around ground strokes, but running around volleys. We tell people all the time, if the ball comes right at you and you play a forehand volley, you will not play doubles at a high level. There was one boy playing for South Carolina that he had redshirted, and I was at the National Clay Courts where he played one of our students, and what an athlete. I would say he was the best mover, but his speed, at 39 feet to the net, he might be really fast, but at 39 feet straight ahead, he's not winning too many races because it's not part of his DNA. Hey, I'm looking for the first opportunity to take a ball out of the air, and we go through it all the time. Is that Braden used to say, do you value volume position? In other words, do you know 130 degrees, and then do you trust your volley and you trust your overhead? But even furthermore, do you understand stats? Anything else, Miron, on this young guy? He knows a little bit about tennis, don't you think?
No, I think the crisis starts in under 12. I think it's a crisis because the 12-year-old wins doing the wrong thing, and they never develop the instinct. Like Ivan said, cutting angles up at the net and being able to move diagonally. And I feel like if you don't develop those things through the age groups and you don't work on that when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then you get thrown to like college tennis, and to change then is so hard unless you're put in an environment where you're forced to every day. So I think the crisis is in junior development. You mentioned
BYU. You mentioned BYU. There's a boy we worked with who's in the lineup, and he did beat the junior Wimbledon champion. Of course, it was high altitude on hard court. The junior Wimbledon he won a couple of years ago. Should be able to rattle off his name. He plays
Samir Banerjee.
Yeah, he plays for Stanford, and but when this young guy he's played a lot of baseball, so that really helped him with his serve. He spent time with me, and I said, serve underhand, go to the net. So someone who's from your neighborhood is Raonic. I always tell a story about he's in Spain, and the coach said to him, just spin your serve in. You got to learn to play from the backcourt. Don't be out here in a $15,000 future trying to hit aces. Like right now, I believe he's number one, Ben Shelton. And I know Matt Clore has spent a lot of time with Ben. I think, okay, what's the remedy? What are you going to do to get people to play better doubles? But even singles, I have people play half-court singles, straight ahead. One, if you serve, okay, it helps you stay sideways. But you serve straight ahead, but you're just playing on 13.5 feet. So I like to have the guy who's, like the kid playing at BYU, I would do this with a Ben Shelton. You're going to serve underhand, and you're going to come in, and can you just stick one volley deep? Singles and doubles. And people were to study Sampras. You could go back to Jack Kramer. Singles or doubles, if you make one volley, you're in good shape. The math is on your side. And, you only have to you're going to dominate if you win 55% of the points. But no, I would say that most college tennis players, they do improve on the track. They improve in the gym. They mature. But I think a lot of them leave with the same game that they went in with. I mean, there's a lot of romancing. But if they're measured, if they're filmed, if they're charted, and I do think there's a lot of hype with, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself. I'd love to go in and watch the matches, but this young guy, I think his last name from England, Jub. He played for England so fast. He played for South Carolina. He's British.
He won NCAAs, right?
He won the NCAAs, and I was there when he won it. But the gal who won it on that year, she played more of a pro style game than he did. with you have to have some offense. I tell people, okay, you've got to have the Marines, you got to have the Army, you got to go by land, and then you got to have the Navy. But you also have to have the Air Force. And you just watch some kid play. Go, their Army, their military has no Air Force. I mean, they just can't attack from up above. But coming back to the hockey is that I think it's great that you take a fourth liner, and he does an excellent job as an analyst. He's sitting next to Wayne Gretzky, many nights, and I think he's career-wise maybe he got 8 goals, where Gretzky got that by Tuesday. So I do think that it's fun to listen to the players on TV, but teaching's information transfer. Go ahead. What other few notes you got from UVA?
Yeah, I got a few more here. One interesting thing I noticed, and I looked it up afterwards to make sure that it was true, is that USC, South Carolina, all the men were wearing heart rate monitors, all of them. And I looked it up afterwards, and the women do it too. And it's just a way that it's a program that the coaches had started. They measure their heart rate during practices, and they're supposed to check in their heart rate when they wake up in the morning. So they're monitored in that way because, and the quote on the website from an article goes, we believe it'll accelerate and improve, how we train. And they read their heart rate as they're playing, as they're practicing, as they're playing matches. And in terms of practice, if their heart rate's way up, okay, they'll do, something else. Or if it's way, way low, then they'll pick up the intensity. And that's what they said on the website. So found that to be very interesting.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but the associate head coach for South Carolina men's team, his name is Johnny Parks. I think he's comes from a little bit. He played at New Mexico around the same time as me. I think I actually played against him, but he comes from a fitness background at IMG. He was the director of fitness at IMG or something like that. But I think he probably brought that in when he went there. I think he joined this year or last year.
Yeah, that's right. He played in New Mexico. I don't really know him that well, but he was one of my teachers. I was going through the high performance program a few years ago, and he was with the USTA as a national coach. Charming guy, and fitness. I think he can definitely fill out a T-shirt with. But I'll throw in a Vic Braden quote. Go with Thomas Jefferson. Man uses 10% of their mind 10% of the time. I think Tommy. I think he could help out some of our leaders today. So old school. I guess when you start talking about Thomas Jefferson, that would be old school. But Vic Braden, this is a great line, Braden, and he's still the late Braden. He's still ahead of his time. Crazy comment, but if you have a crummy backhand, a heart rate monitor would come into this, and you get super fit, and your footwork is better, and you get to the ball earlier, you just have more time to hit your crummy backhand, because if it's crummy, it's crummy. And that's just so classic. No, but I think it's great they're doing. I remember Lair. I actually, all the time I spent with Lair back in the 80s. It's a tool that I had, an instrument that you could really find out how nervous your players are, how uptight they get, because, Lair used to have it on his wristwatch, and it was he was way ahead of his time doing that. Where players getting so nervous. But no, it's great they're doing that. But you're running the wrong way. You won't win the race. It's just like I tell people all the time. Well, you're running 100 meters, but why do you run 130? You just get right up there on the line. But go ahead. What else you got?
Yeah, let me continue here. Some comments. It was interesting. One point, the number 4 line. It was 2 players that are both injured playing each other, and no one defaulted because they both knew the other was injured. And you could tell where they could still rally and they still serve, but the serve wasn't, booming, and they couldn't really run as fast. You could just tell like something was going on, and everybody knew, and they both knew that they both were injured, and it was kind of it was an interesting match to watch. Someone who would hit a drop shot, and the player trying to hobble to get to it, and so that was one note.
No, in that sense, I mean the compete level, like the girls' doubles is equally as bad as the men's, but boy, the shot tolerance and keeping the ball in play. A young boy who I just met, I mean, I worked with him for a week in Switzerland, Jeffrey von Schnulenberg. Worked with his little brother one time when he was 8. He came to our place, but he was down 5-love, came back and won. And it was really interesting. I can remember Dave Squire, who coached both those boys, he just really loved how young Jeffrey handled himself. And so it's so important to try to get people to have, just that moxie from the beginning, even going up and shaking an adult's hand and introducing themselves and asking out if they can help out in the kitchen, and just first class stuff. But go ahead.
We watched court 1 as well. I just wrote down tall versus tall, two tall players. I believe they're both top 10 ncaa. You could tell the level difference was apparent. Bigger serves, bigger ground strokes. The player on the Virginia side, that was the player I mentioned who was looking to force, close in, and seemed to have more experience in that sense. But just athletes with a racket, we have then the women's side. So the doubles as well, 1 up, 1 back, 0 serve and volleys. I was looking for one. I was looking for 1 serve and volley point on the doubles for the women, 0.
And one thing what Miron said, if you go back to the 12s, I try to bring a little sensationalism, a little drama to a comment, is that junior tennis players easily will go 5 years and not serve and volley one time, singles or doubles. It's absolutely crazy. Like, why don't you play a practice set and play the entire set where you serve and volley? But go ahead.
Would they even take a serve, let the ball bounce, and then go in, or not even that?
I mean, if they had to, I felt like they just didn't want to. All I know, if I know this for sure, there was not a single time on any of the 3 doubles courts for the women's match where a player served and the next ball they hit was in the air or they went forward. That never happened. I think there were some where you just mentioned, Miron, where it landed short, I'd guess, from off the return, and then it hit a ball and then they come in. But I watched, and it's in my notes here as well, the tallest girl on the Virginia side for the women, she was just, she also just huge serve, tall girl, huge serve. She'd stay back. She'd end up coming to the net in the middle of the rally. I swear this happened. They were both, all 4 at the net, which was surprising. They lobbed the Vanderbilt team, and then both players went backwards. All 4 players went backwards off the net. No one stayed on the net. I was like, what? I mean, this girl, you couldn't lob over her. She was tall, and she backpedaled to the baseline off of a lob to the other team. I'm just like, what's going on? So that was a highlight or a low light, I guess you could say. So yeah, I wrote down here, so many wounded ducks. So yeah, a ball is floating in the air. You're just, that also doesn't make sense to me. How do you not see that from the coach's perspective? I would say where, okay, train your players where they see a ball that's like traveling at 10 miles an hour, that's touching, the top of the lowest part of the clouds that has nothing on it, and your players are waiting for it to bounce, go up to the apex, then back down, and then hit a ground stroke. You could have hit an overhead off the bounce. You could have not let it bounce at all. You could have been at the net already. You could have won the point. It could have been on the next point already. And it's still in the air, this ball that's like out of nowhere. And then the opponent doesn't, your partner doesn't push. She's just standing there. It's just like, that's happened so many times during the doubles when I was watching it. It's just like, eye-opening. And then you know, it's a long point, and all the crowd after the point's like, oh yeah, it's like it's not a great point. I mean, I guess you know, I can't judge too much. Why? Because I came from that. I know that. I was just like that. I mean, I had no information. That's where I reiterate, where I say I'm so fortunate now to have found out about the information. And you know, why we're, that's our mission, to try and spread the information and knowledge out there, so everyone could have, you know, these aha moments, these kind of like, why are we playing these this way moments. But so more points here. A lot of running around the backhands. I wrote down running around the backhand like it's the plague. Like it's the plague. It's amazing the lengths that the players would go to run around their backhand. It's like they just don't. And most of the girls actually had great backhands. I would argue that, technically speaking, majority of the girls' backhands were more fundamentally sound than their forehands. And you could say that with most players, you know, their right hand for a righty is, you know, attached to the racket, so you have a more chance to have a more circular swing. So you have all the technical information for the reason why a backhand is the better shot technically and more consistently. But I mean, they just don't hit it. They run around it so far. They just like inbuilt. We're talking about what the coaches say. It might not be the coaches, might be just how they played in juniors, but especially in the singles, I mean, talk about no options. I mean, that's just a one-dimensional game. It's just, I'm running around my backhand to hit a forehand. I'm waiting for you to miss, or if I miss, or I hit a winner. So those are the three options.
Home run derby.
Home run derby. You hit a winner, you miss. I hit a winner, I miss. That's it. I'm just running around my backhand. That's just their game plan. If they hit a drop shot, it's like, good luck at the net. I mean, not very many points, I'd say, where there was a display of skill at the net at all. It was kind of a lot of finesse. Again, the finesse because the continental grip, they weren't taught at a young age to drive the volleys. Not confident in their overheads. Very few palm down overheads. That's one thing also for the men as well. Very surprising for me. I only saw one true palm down overhead. Most I mean, most had booming serves and they had palm down serves, but when it came to the overhead, I only saw one true palm down overhead. I wouldn't say they were all palm up. No, it's like, you know, regress palm up, but not one where it was true palm down. And I was like, that's going to come back to haunt them. And sure enough, in the doubles and in the singles, they'd get up there and they'd miss a lot of overheads long. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's just how it works. And the same thing with the women as well. A lot of palm up or regress palm up, you know, your palms to the side, not completely up, I'd say. Overheads as well. So it's just, you know, the connection, that's one thing. You know, I'm speaking whenever I get a chance to speak here. I always speak from experience because I'm what is introduced to information, like we talked about 3 years ago. So I have a perspective that's not that's not that far away. That's pretty recent, where I didn't know anything in regards to tennis, and I can look back and say, oh yeah, that is what I thought when I didn't know anything. So I understand it, but it's hard for me to look back and say, how did I not make the connection between the overhead and the serve? I mean, it's the same motion, it's just one's shortened. And why do some players have a great serve and a poor overhead? Because one's palm down and one's palm up, and you can't make that connection. It's tough. So that's what we're battling with, you know, in tennis. So looking at my notes here, yeah, too many touch volleys. Same thing on the women's side. Too many volleys out to the outside of the court. Too many finesse shots. The men's team was actually there and supporting their butts off. I mean, you know, it seemed like they were there to have a good time. I think, you know, there might have been some aluminum cans there. But they were yelling so loud. I mean, the stadium, it's made out of metal. It was like metal stands, but not really. It was built into the concrete. It was great stadium. And you know, they'd win a point, they'd stomp their legs on the ground, and just be so much noise. And the other players and points are going on. And this one, like court 2 won a point, court 3 and 1 are in the middle of a point, and they just start stomping and It's like it's distracting, but you know, you got to get used to it. And I think the players, especially at this level, in that far in the tournament, they're used to it. However, there was this one point, number 3 singles, where she was just fed up and looked at the umpire like, what am I gonna do? I mean, I'm in the middle of a point, and these guys starts just yelling so loud. So that was an experience.
One thing, let me interject. There are a couple points. I've written down many things here. Actually, the coaches, you just think, well, we talked about it earlier. If the players are soft, you go, okay, we're going to change how you play doubles. I was told just today, talking to Matt Clore, the portal now, if someone is upset, they can just go back to their dorm room and their apartment and pull out their laptop and say, I'm ready to leave the university. 8,000 basketball players this year entered the portal. And
wow,
with, some kid who's not in the top 5. And now it's very difficult. Deion Sanders, who's coaching the Colorado football team, said, I'm not recruiting at the high school. I'm going to recruit off the portal. Say some kid comes in and they do the redshirt year, and the freshman year they sit, but they've been there for 2 years, and the training they've had. That's according to him, that's a better risk than taking a junior player. I've mentioned this before on our podcast. I saw Michael Usney coaching at the Battle of Boca, and all 4 players were staying back in doubles. It was just like, okay.
Yeah, that's another sport now. They have that UTR Dingles now. That's just Dingles.
Well, Dingles is a great drill where kids rally cross court, and as you know, 2 balls are going, and then if the players on the ad court miss, for example, everybody comes in, or the people rallying deuce court to deuce court. Mm-hmm. So it's a very good drill, but as soon as somebody misses the ground strokes, everybody crashes the net. But that's not all 4 players staying back. It's interesting with the pros. A lot of juniors now they're playing so many drop shots, but even in the pros, it's because they're so far behind the baseline. With Ivan, you mentioned chess. The late Robin Williams, tennis is chess at 90 miles an hour, but there's not much chess going on. It's just like you said, this guy's got one move, or this gal's got one move, and their opponent, clones taught by clowns, are playing the same way. There's definitely a case of net phobia. A gal who's on the USTA board, very good tennis player, she was sent to me 2 different times. And my son, Connor, I'm going to guess that he was 10 years old, 11 years old. I said, Connor, get over here. And on both the men and the women, they're arching their back and they're tossing way over their head. And because of that, they're swinging up, and the ball's going a high trajectory, and the ball bounces based on trajectory. Most kids have a palm-up serve. They don't get to a really good serve by corrective methodology. They just start arching their back. And then as they arch their back, instead of palm up, they have the racket on edge. So they get spin, but they don't get speed. So and I've done this with many players, but this gal went through college tennis, and she had some success on the WTA Tour. And I said, I'm going to prove a point. I said, this 10-year-old can come out here and he can catch your serve. He's going to stand in the service box, and he's going to try to catch your serve. It's an optical problem. When you look at an airplane, it looks like it's floating. So you're at ground level, you're looking off in the distance, and it looks like the airplane's floating. But if you're at the curb, or you're at the railroad station, it looks like the car or the train is going really fast. So it's an optical illusion with the ball. That's one reason that people move back slowly on a lob, is that they don't realize, hey, I got to move, because it's further away from them, and they don't realize how fast it's going. I think with another thing too, with Yvonne, Steve Campbell, the director here at Wintergreen, calls him the Swiss Army knife. He's a utility guy. He can do it all. So you play obviously a respectable level of tennis, but I think really what happens is that with just you said ramble. Some people might say rant, but you just gave out so much information, like boom, boom, to take your machine and push pause, write that down. Take off a podcast, take pause, write that down, pause, write that down, pause, write that down. And it's like da 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 da. And but then it's jackocracy. It's like Howard Cosell, the famous announcer who wrote or had the line. I don't think it was the name of his book. I never played the game. If I were to bet, I think that was the name of the book. I never played the game. So what happens is only players can coach players. With the assistant coach, at the University of Virginia. She's the same age as my son Connor. She's an excellent tennis player. Played at UNC. She was at NC State, and she's been at Virginia many years. Gina. I have to senior moment. Gina's last name, but so anyway, at NC State, she wanted to do some teaching, and I was there, and I said, "Okay, let me have you just go through with this intern, very bright gal," and I said, "I'm pretty sure Gina played. I think she was top 5 in the NCAA. She's a really good tennis player." I said, "In the next 30 to 45 minutes, you're going to hear information you've never heard before. That's tennis math. Okay, here are the realities, the optical illusions of a tennis court. Just go with that fact-based." And listeners, in our world, if you don't know 19.1 degrees, the tennis math, if you don't know, I used to say that a lot of times the ATP guys are talking about the pension, but now I think they're spending more time talking about fantasy football. But let's go a few more thoughts on, you got a few more notes on UVA?
Yeah, I have a few more thoughts, a few more notes.
What do you think of this young guy, Miron? You think he's learned a little bit?
He's on it. Does he want to come work for me?
Yeah, I got a few more notes. Here. I got for women, but this applies for men as well, I would say. Opposed to, the number one that I mentioned with the volleys. All block volleys, no drive volleys. They're all the volleys they hit are just minuses. It's hard. I'd say it's as rare to see a plus volley, a strong volley, as it is to see a serve and volley point for the women and for the men as well. But again, we did see that one doubles team from the South Carolina side serve and volley. So the women's doubles was more exciting than the men's, and that was purely because of scores. Because the score was a lot tighter. So Virginia women's doubles lost at line 3 quite quickly. I believe it was 6-1. And I think I have it down here. Yeah, they lost 6-1. And then lines 1 and 2, were at 5-all each. So it was like, oh, who's going to finish first? And it was tight. So it was exciting because of the score. And, it's built that way, and it gets the crowd involved. And so in that sense, it was exciting. One thing here I have, one girl I mentioned, I only saw one girl with a decent backhand volley. So no real forehand volleys that were drives, but I saw one girl, and I don't remember off the top of my head if it was if I were to guess, it was the Virginia girl for line 2. She had a drive backhand volley. It was two-handed, and she had a drive two-handed backhand volley. She hit it infrequently, again, but when she did, it was like, whoa, it stood out. It's like, you don't see that every day. Watching the women getting into the singles now, I charted, just looking across the 6 courts, I can monitor all 6 courts simultaneously. But just looking across, I started charting how many times I saw just a player at the net. And across the 6 matches, for all 6 matches, I charted that 63 times I saw a player be at the net, just come to the net. 63 times. 13 of those times was off a drop shot. So a player hit a drop shot and they came in. So that's kind of a forced net play. So voluntarily, players coming to the net, if you just subtract those, an even 50. Again, what I saw, in my opinion, I saw 19 overheads hit in the singles, total across 6 courts, 6 matches, best of 3 sets, 19 overheads. I personally didn't see any serve and volley points being played. Again, personally, I couldn't monitor everything. I didn't see any serve and volley points in the singles for the women. Few notables here. The number 3 for Virginia, and you can look this up. I'm not going to name her name. I don't want to bash her, but her forehand, I mean, it's a liability. I mean, it's it's both amazing in both ways. It's amazing how she can play at such a high level, NCAA with D1, round of 16. Now they're in the quarter soon. If they win, they're in the semis. Her forehand is non-existent. Like, she doesn't have a forehand. She gets it in, but it's so inefficient. She reverts and will play more forehand slices off the forehand side than just a regular ground stroke with topspin. She runs around her forehand to hit her backhand because her backhand's quite circular, quite a good backhand. And she beat her opponent, who is quite a feisty competitor. I'd say she was the most vocal on the South Carolina team. And she just beat her down with these deep slices. And I'm sitting here watching this match. It's like right in front of me. It's where I was sitting. And it's just, not a single shot off her forehand side for this girl was a plus when she hit an underspin, for sure, off the forehand side. So she's hitting minuses off her forehand side and to the opponent's backhand. And her opponent is running around her backhand and behind the baseline trying to hit trying to blast a forehand. She's now 80 feet from the baseline, and she's just hitting, like, at best an IP off a minus. And this is happening every point where they get into a rally. It goes to the forehand. The Virginia girl slices the ball back. It's either to the forehand side, the forehand comes back, or it goes to the backhand. Her opponent runs around her backhand to hit a forehand, and it's just that's it. That's the whole gameplay. That's the whole match. And someone misses. No, they're very infrequently where her opponent for the South Carolina girl, gets frustrated in the middle of a point because she's returning these slices that are just nothing balls. And she just gets frustrated and just lashes out, tries to hit a winner and misses, maybe gets 20% of them in. And it's just like, this isn't working. You hit your backhand, stay in the rally and look to come forward. And she just doesn't do that. At the end, I summarized it with like 2 words. Basically, the women's singles matches were no options. So if you're losing, they're going to lose that way. They're going down. They're going to die, live by the sword, but die by the sword, as we say.
Braden would say, if they have no options, they might as well mail in the scores. Vic would also say, well, at least you got the exercise.
Yeah.
But one thing, Miron, a couple of things. You're asking, hey, Yvonne, you want to come work for me? But in your culture, people would listen to him. I don't think that any of the players, unless it's presented the right way. I mean, that's where we use film and charts and go with fact-based. But the girl with the sliced forehand, they're not even attacking it. They're just staying back. And just again, geometry of the court, stats. But she's a gamer.
100%.
So how many of the of the kids that
and she can probably run. She can probably run like a Ferrari.
I wouldn't say she was the quickest cat out there, but she got balls back. I mean, you could see the fire in her eyes. She just competitor.
How many kids that come to your mind that you right away you got kids that are gamers? I mean, we have so many kids like beautiful strokes. If there was only judges for form instead of okay, let's keep score a different way. Who has the prettiest form? But you start pencil to paper. You got a lot of guys and gals that are gamers in your junior program.
Not a lot.
Felix.
We got some, but Felix is a gamer. Yeah.
What's Felix's last name? Felix's last name?
Rasul. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a gamer.
He's a gamer.
Just loves to compete. I think one thing with the doubles, I mean, there's one girl from Vanderbilt. She was a senior, and all the girls straight across the board. It really looks like the tactics you would see in 3-5 lady doubles, but you got these really good athletes, playing with really 3-5 tactics. I remember working with Mike Carter one time. He's been with the USTA forever. He worked with me for 5 years. He was a student first. And we're working with players, and he goes, this is great. They're intermediates, but they look like they can play. because you're making them go forward. Dennis Vandermeer would say, "Okay, we're going to help you with your serve, and then show you a volley, and say, okay, now you're pretty much ready to play doubles." One bounce doubles is a great thing. For me, getting into hockey or getting into tennis from hockey at a late age. So when I get into tennis, Jimmy Connors is number one in the world in singles. Fru McMillan is number one in the world in doubles. They both have two-handed backhand volleys. And when you hang on to a hockey stick, your lower hand is the Eastern forehand grip. Your upper hand is continental. So I had a very good two-handed backhand volley, but I was told, no, you don't hit it that way. And I spent all the hours, years, trying to, knife my backhand volley. And then years later, when I was a hitting partner, Vic Braden would work with some pros. I remember Tim Gullickson, for example, came several times. So I was fortunate to hang out with the late Tim Gully and Vic, and Vic would end up working more with me. I remember one time he just put his hand over his eyes and said, "Steve, your backhand volley," just chopping trees, But the thing is that you can go to a Division I men's match, women's match too, but you're hard pressed to see one good backhand volley. Go ahead, Miron. What do you got?
I remember watching. What was the U.S. Open finals, double finals this year? Two Canadians, really a Canadian and New Zealand girl. This girl Dabrowski, she's Canadian.
Yeah, I listened to
her
podcast.
Coming in, she's coming on everything, and like two-handed backhand while he's driving it, and it's like, you just go watch that. That girl can play doubles. Like, she's a good doubles player. Like, and she's going out and winning Grand Slams. It's like, just show the girl that.
She's from Ottawa too, right?
Yeah, she's from Ottawa. Came from nothing.
Yeah, that's great.
And the other girl's basically from Canada, but grew up and played at Alabama, I think, and plays under the New Zealand flag now, but is Canadian basically. But Dombrowski, you watch her play, she's coming in driving two-handed volleys all over the net, and it's like, I came back the next day and I asked the group, I'm like, did you guys watch this girl play doubles? It was world-class doubles.
Julian Krinsky, a guest on our podcast, great guy, been in tennis forever. He's a player. Just out of nowhere, he goes, yeah, I think I'll play. He rolls up at a 60 nationals and wins it. He's such a classy guy, but he picks on the ladies doubles. Easiest money in pro sports, women's doubles. But the men, I think it's the times too, is that, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It's like, come on, you got to serve and go forward. But you said it, you have to go at a really young age. You any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, just two, three more here.
This guy's on a roll, this young guy. What do you think, Miron?
I got
he's on it. You got to send me these notes.
I'll send you the notes. I got poor targets. They just poor targets. They see the line and they go for it. They don't know the percentages. They don't know. They don't have that big target. Again, like I said, I look back on how I played when I was younger. I started playing when I was around 8. It's when I picked up the racket. And I was like, how did I play matches before? And I would just remember, well, I'm just going to play rally and hit a big ball until either I hit a winner, I miss, or same thing on the other side. And at a certain point, when that's all your targets actually get really small because you don't have options.
What do you think? But do you think that I don't know. If sometimes I watch junior tennis and I'm saying the same thing. Like, these guys, they have no idea about the targets. I also sometimes think that they aren't accurate enough to hit targets. They just try to hit the ball so hard rather than being so precise. Yeah, it's just like, if you put a cone on there, can they hit like a 3x3 target around the percentage post over and over and over? Or are they going to miss 10 feet one way, 10 feet the other way, and now they can't even hit it?
Yeah. That's why.
It's a mixture of precise.
That's why we skill test. Just to show them, like, you can't get 6 balls in play in a row. And yeah, I mean, junior tennis is really, why I say the targets just get so small is because, you're, especially, depending on the conditions, but you're going to get tired just playing that style of tennis where you're, 3 feet, but 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, drifting behind the baseline, playing that style of tennis where either you miss, hit a winner, or they miss, hit a winner. And then you just realize, like, for me to win, they're not missing. My target has to be really small. And usually the target is either that white line or the open court. And it's just wrong. Two more things here. I got on the women's side, I didn't really take note on the men's side. On the women's side, there was not a single centered ready position for any of the players there on the court. Zero. They all had some form of a forehand grip on the ready position. So and then last comment here, I had mentioned this previously, it's good to reinforce, is that the conventional approach volley does not exist anymore, especially in those matches that we saw. They, just reiterating, the ball's in the air and they just don't know what to do with it. They're just like, I guess I'm just waiting here and waiting for it to bounce and then reach the apex and go on back down and then I'll hit a shot.
Well, and because of that,
they're waiting on the forehand grip, though. They're waiting on that forehand grip ready position grip too.
Yeah, that's why the racket's certainly not centered. The racket's not centered. The ready position to be ready. But also too, when they back up, it's amazing. The contact points are shoulder level. Hey, let's back up on one thought where you said for Yvonne to send your notes, but I think I've worked with your full-time staff. I think I've worked with every coach but one. But tell Coach Will that he needs to listen to this podcast in particular and send us the notes. He can write up notes that we can even post. You got it?
Oh, I guarantee Will will do that. Will's the note master.
Yeah. So with the, he's always got a smile on his face. Sometimes you have to take the smile off someone's face. You can't keep smiling every minute of the day. But it's just tennis IQ. Coming back to all these comments, Dennis Vandermeer, I loved it how you put a cone down and say, okay, just basic cross court forehands, and you get one feeder, one hitter, then one person has to spot where the 10 balls go. And they can't hit the targets. We have the 5 cones. I guess from here we could transfer to, you could call off a number. Andy Fitzell has been on the WTA tour with Diana Schneider for a little over a month now. You know how we put 5 cones on the court? You have the percentage posts that are basically 3.5 feet from the sidelines and baseline. And the baseline's in singles 27 feet wide. So you got 20 feet in between. And then we put the target, this comes from Braden as well, is that you put the center mark 5 feet from the baseline. And then up at the service box, you just draw an X in the box and you put a cone right in the center. So you have 5 targets. And, we have kids all the time, okay, show us where the 5 targets are. But going back to Welby Van Horn, when the kid picks up their racket, they reduce their IQ in half. And they're basically saying to themselves, I want to win. What's the score? My UTR. And they don't have targets. Let's do this for a minute. Miron, call out a number. We go with these notes from Andy. What I did is watched a match. This guy was playing Padosa, who at one time was ranked 2 in the world. And Diana Schneider, she beat the number 15 player. This was at the Italian Open? Yes.
Correct.
Italian Open.
Yeah.
15 player in the world. And how Andy got connected with her is Natalia Sorkin, who's been a guest on our podcast. She started as a mom and an intern, and all these years later, now she's a coach. Her daughter was just up here, and we have film of her daughter. We actually just showed some film of her daughter. She was 5, and she had her strokes down pretty much when she was 5. But from Moscow, from the Spartak program, she grew up with Diana Schneider's mom. And then she asked me, what should they do? And I said, why don't you go to NC State and learn how to play? And she was, I think, top 5 in the juniors, maybe even higher. Spent 1 year at NC State. But a great opportunity, I think, both for Andy and Diana. So give me a number. What do you got? So what I did is this, we film, we can, it's amazing. We'd be up here in the mountains and tell people, okay, we're going to Rome. Okay, we're going to LA. Because you can stream matches and it's amazing how you can follow tennis by not being there in person. But give me a number.
Go with lucky number 7.
Live your life to win. Why don't you make a comment off the comment? Live your life to win. What do you have to say about that?
I think I look at it as like everything you do, you want to do it to the best that you can do. You know, you go talking to some kids today. It's like, you know, you come, you warm up, be perfect in your warm up. You hit balls the best you can. Take good swings every time. Compete to the best of your ability. You know, everything you do in life, the way you make your bed in the morning, the way you go about stretching when you're done the end of the day, like the way you take care of your body. I feel like it's just everything you do has to be a winning mindset to be as perfect as possible.
Oh, that's great. Give me another number. They're 1 through 126.
52.
The key shot is who hits short. What do you comment on that? Certainly in pro tennis, the men's side and the women now too, is that the key shot can be the serve. Like someone with your game, the key shot was your first and second serve because both were pluses. But what comes to your mind talking to your students? Key shot is who hits short.
Well, I think trying to teach them and have them understand that from the red zone, from the defensive and neutral area of the red zone, that you're basically waiting for your opponent to miss or hit short. And when you hit short, they don't understand that they need to be in the yellow zone, get up to the ball fast, and being able to transition through the yellow zone to finish a good point ending position. So, you know, I think it comes down to, do you recognize when the ball is short? Can you react and move when the ball is short? And are you willing to play a combo? You know, I find a lot of kids now and are just trying to, you know, they're going for that uppercut. They're going to go and run around and look for that big forehand. Instead of playing an approach shot, look for a volley, play 2-shot connections, right? Just like in boxing, jab, uppercut. The same type of thing, teaching them the idea that you don't need to blast the approach shot. You can play an underspin approach shot, give yourself more time, slow the ball down, keep the ball low, give yourself time to get closer to the net. You know, learning to play off that short ball.
Oh, great input. Give us another one.
Go, Mr. Wayne Gretzky, 99.
Actually, one thing as I'm looking this up, Pedrosa, during the break between the second and third set, you know, she has a really high toss, and Diana Schneider wasn't reading that she went more to the right when she was hitting out to the deuce court. Like yourself, she's a lefty. But her shadow swings, forehands and backhands, Pedrosa is very, very good. You know, she's got overall very, very good ground strokes. She's very similar, obviously a higher level athlete, higher level competitor, however you want to label it. She played very similar in a lot of ways to the girls at the round of 16, but just obviously, but it just was like, I don't want to come forward. And if they did come forward, it was a swinging volley. And you can tell going back to the ready position, if that racket's not centered and they're hanging on to their, you know, the racket with a semi-Western grip, there's a very good chance they're not taking the ball out of the air. With making errors, and there's a good mistake and a bad mistake, missing long versus missing wide. What comes to your mind on that one?
Oh, you know, missing long, court's a long rectangle. Missing long, you have 78 feet if you hit straight ahead. You have 82.5 feet if you hit cross court. You know, we bought these air target things the last couple of months, and we just put them up every day. These air targets on the side give kids the idea of hitting 4 feet over the net. And I tell them, when you miss in the net, that's the equivalent of a basketball player taking a jump shot and not even getting the jump shot over the rim. But they don't look at it like that. But if you think about it logically, it's just, you're not even giving yourself a chance to play tennis. You're not even giving yourself a chance for the ball to go in the net when you miss in the net. And then you're behind the baseline. You have less than 19 degrees of angle to work with, and you're playing to the small, tiny target close to the line. So, I think I speak to the idea that, when you miss, do you know where you missed? Are you aware of where you missed? And are you going to have constructive feedback and fix it? Are you going to make a mistake in that? Sure. But you better not make that mistake again, or you're an idiot.
I like that.
It just drives me nuts.
You're an idiot. With I've done this with players in the past who are playing practice sets, tiebreakers. If you're behind the baseline and you miss wide, you lose a point. Actually, someone from your club, much older than you, Jeremy Langer, is that, or younger?
No, younger.
Younger. Okay, so younger. Langer hit the ball really well. And I remember him saying one time, I don't mind if I miss a shot if I'm trying to do something offensively. That's a pretty good comment instead of just missing that routine ball. Let's go with
today we had kids. I think Patrick had kids. Any unforced error in the red zone, in point play, in the net or wide, you miss there, you do 5 burpees right away. Get on the ground.
Burpees for Americans.
And then
that's a squat thrust. Go ahead.
Suddenly now it's like, okay, I'm a little more accountable for when I miss. Start seeing them think a little bit, because those burpees start adding up once you do 2 or 3 of those 5 times.
We just had a young player here. He's only 13, and I've known him for 6 years. And he comes and visits now and then, and say, do 5 squat thrusts. He goes, "What's a squat thrust?" I go, "Oh no." That's where I told him the story that years ago the Lord appeared and told me, "Steve, you've been such a bad person. I'd like to take you right now. You're going to go straight to hell. But because you've been such a bad person, what I'm going to do is have you teach tennis to kids for 50 years. I mean, it's just like, are you kidding me? All right, let's go 2 more with the WTA match. Give me another
2 more. Well, let's go 34.
34. Let's see here.
One thing while Steve is looking this up is when Steve mentioned how we play the game where, or a variety of points where if you play a set, you miss from the back court behind the baseline, you miss wide. Steve said you lose the point. He meant you lose the game, so you don't want to miss wide.
With
not from back there.
Yep, for sure.
A little bit of humor. That famous court at the Italian Open with all the statues. I asked Fitzel, that was number 34. Are one of those statues Rocky? Yeah, Rocky's Italian. So I'll go with just the next one is free points. She had 3 in a row, free points. Why don't you comment on free points? Happy birthday.
Well, I think there's 2 types of free points. Free points that are nice for you and free points that are terrible for you. Free points that are nice for you is if you have a weapon and a serve that can basically give you 3 points every game, which is a nice thing to have in your back pocket and something that every junior should work on every single day. Take a basket, go hit serves so you can develop the opportunity to get 3 points. And then, the idea is try to reduce the amount of free points that you give your opponents, whether it is putting a first serve return in the court, being able to block a return back like a volley with an added follow through. And you like to use the analogy, like I asked them, how does it feel when you hit a second serve and your opponent misses? And everyone's going to say, feels amazing. And then that's what you're giving your opponent when you give them 3 points without making them play more shots, without putting enough balls in play. Right. So I think,
remember when Agassi had retired, or he was on his way out. And I think he was great in the booth talking about forehands and backhands, talking about strategy. And he was talking about a young Andy Roddick, and they asked him what he thought. And he said, I would die for his serve because I never got free points. And if you look at his toss, Agassi really had 2 solid second serves. And, then you look at it, actually, Federer had more problems when the Agassi would hit his kick into his Federer's backhand. So you have to look at the matchups. So then they asked Agassi about Roddick's forehand. He said, no, it takes him too long to get the racket in the pocket. It wasn't that compact. But yeah, free points. Obviously, your tennis with your lefty serve, you got lots of free points. Not only did you get free points, either an ace or obviously it was a forced error as they missed the return, got a racket on it, but also then they would hit weak. And that's something we hear all the time, serve +1. I mean, come on, the kid's 12 years old. Or you're talking to him. Some of those phrases, O'Shaughnessy's done a great job with the brain game and helping promote tennis, but 12-year-olds don't hear it's just the first 4 shots. Then you got to.
So I think what was powerful growing up was Richard used to have that the CompuTennis computer, and he would just I would always play, and the first thing I would even win or lose, the first thing I would want him to do was print out that little, came out like a receipt that you get at a restaurant, right? And it would just give you your aggressive error margin. It would break down everything in percentages, and we just had goals. And the goals were never about winning and losing. It was like, okay, where are my stats? Did I win 30% of points, one forcing? Where are my unforced errors under 20%? And it was all about being so much more aware of how we were playing and how the points were ending rather than the outcome. And I think, these days you ask a junior how the match was, and if you're not there, I would say 95% of the time they're talking total nonsense. They're not giving you an accurate description about what happened, unless the dad's out there charting for you, or you can videotape it. But their awareness of what happened is so poor. So poor.
Well, yeah, if you were fly on the wall listening to the college players, again, round of 16, NCAAs, they played a ton of tennis, but to be a fly on the wall, it's just really interesting how basic tactics and basic fundamentals, it's almost like it's a secret in tennis. Give me one more for the WTA player. We'll do a few on the junior side. But the thing in the end is that they're all the same. Go ahead, give me another number.
Number 40.
Bowling pin. Have your opponent be like a bowling pin, the center pin. What comes to your mind?
You want to center the ball. You want to keep them deep. You don't want to open up the court. You don't want to give them angle. You want to basically push them back, knock them over, wait for them to hit short, and then you can spread the court. I find too many people are trying to play. You hear this philosophy: open up the court, but there's nowhere to open up the court. You got to keep it deep first and push them back first, knock them over.
Yeah, I think with spread the court, they certainly can spread the court if they're going so far east and west that they put themselves almost in the other doubles alley to hit a forehand. Actually, with an open mic. Uncle Tony was picked up, and basically he was picked up saying, we can't believe how dumb Roger's playing. And as great as Federer was, I mean, he ran around his backhand to play into Rafa's forehand. And then Djokovic comes on the scene with a great backhand. And then in 2017, where Federer said, the best 20 minutes of his life, he did use tennis analytics. But the bowling pin, even when someone comes to the net, pass on the second ball. Look at them in the warm-up. They're running around their volley. They're sliding over. They could just finesse volleys with an open racket face or racket paths going downward. And but just even back on the baseline, one of your students was here, and I didn't want him to know that your student, young guy, 8th grader, at that time was an 8-2, and he's playing a 10-2. And very obedient. And he did what he was told. I said, all you're going to do is aim right at him. He's going to be in the middle of the baseline, just hit right at him. When he comes to the net, hit right at him. And the 8-2 beat the 10-2, and he was in shock.
But he didn't know he didn't know he was a 10-2 at the time, right?
Right, he didn't know he was a 10-2.
Tell him until after.
Right.
So there's no off after. It's just go play tennis, and it doesn't matter who's on the other side.
Yeah. No, my son Connor, he was in Sweden as a young kid, and he ended up winning a very respectable junior tournament, but he didn't know anybody. A lot of times people just play to their seed. The match is over before it starts. Well, I'm the ninth seed, so I'll be lucky to get to the quarters. Well, if I'm seeded 8, I'm playing the 3rd seed. The match is over before it starts. I think
these days it's worse. It's the UTR down now. Oh, I'm playing someone's 1 point UTR higher than me. Oh, I can't beat him. It's even worse, I think.
No, for sure. I mean, Battle Boca, they put the UTR right on the draw sheet. I know Jeremy Wertzman. Actually, he spent a lot of time at Richmond Hill, and he's on our Tennis Intelligence Applied course, and where he's filmed, there's a before and after where he's 11 and then he's 14 and he's won a national title. And the post was filmed at Richmond Hill, but he wouldn't look at the draw. His longtime girlfriend is now his wife, but he used to, call his wife and say, "Who do I play next?" He'd be on the road because he wouldn't want to know. Wouldn't want to look ahead in the draw. Let's go 5 on the most recent junior you've had visit here. Give this number. We got big numbers here. Through 170.
Well, how high can we go? 170?
172.
160. Let's go 160.
160. That's the speed of my serve.
MPHs, right?
Yeah. Let's just move the decimal point. With Jim Verdict 10-minute warm-up drill, what comes to your mind?
Well, we've been doing it a lot lately. Skill development, learning how to volley, learning control, learning how to move at the net, being able to have great racket head control, great racket head awareness, get the footwork going. I think it's so powerful. So powerful. People, as we discussed, right, being able to learn to cover the net, being able to learn to place the ball at the net, being able to learn to square the racket up at the net, being able to learn to move diagonal. The baseline being the mini tennis player on the other side, being able to learn to just move, run, stop, hit on good balance. I think it's super powerful.
I mean, I can just go through my phone and the college coaches just that I communicate with on a regular basis. Our listeners should go back and listen to the podcast that we dedicated to Jim Verdict, and then also his son, Doug. And, Doug heard about the 10-minute warm-up drill. He said, when I was training with my dad, we didn't do the 10-minute warm-up drill. One point of many is that you got to always be improving. But the 10-minute warm-up drill, he would do it when he first started doing that, did it every day. Just takes 10 minutes. Moving your feet. It's one player hitting, you're hitting from the service line, a forehand ground stroke, find the ball, brush the ball, short compact, circular swing. The volleyer is just getting those hands off the body, elbow raised, just pushing it. Okay, let's go 4 more. Give me another one.
Go 111.
111. We have one more song we could add to the end of this podcast. Oh, Canada. I grew up hearing that song. I grew up 10 miles from Canada. Those are listening. Great place. As I look it up, says Ivan, he's from Southern California. Why don't you want to eat yellow snow? Okay, he knows. He's laughing. He's got it. Here's a great line. Just don't miss. Hey, don't think about a pink elephant. What are you going to think about? I ran the NJCA Nationals for 4 years and had a pretty low-key coach. I said, hey, I just want you to go very quietly, just listen to every coach you can and write down comments. And, I certainly made fun of that, hey, don't miss. But what comes to your mind when you hear that? Just don't miss.
I think it's the most simple thing someone can be told, but it's so powerful. It's like just understanding that, can you be patient? Can you keep the ball in play? Can you run? Can you fight? We've spoken about, Ivan spoke a lot about, the college tennis matches and how bad it was, but I'm guessing they're at that level and it's a high level that not many people can get to because they understand that you need to run, you need to fight, and you just need to put the ball in play. And, you know, it's not flashy. So they could be better, way better, but they understand the basic of tennis, keep the ball in play. Actually,
Matt Clora was with the USTA, and he may be headed back that way with, everybody knows who's part of our network, our study, our homework, is that he hits the ball really well. You just see on a ton of videos we have, short, compact swings, very athletic guy. So he, like you, he's 40. What year were you born?
I'm 84.
Yeah, so he's 84. So he'd be the first person to say, well, no, I didn't, I'm not taking a lot of credit for coaching Danielle Collins, who's really on fire right now as she finishes up her career. But Clore was assigned to work with her. I'm not sure if it was the year that she got to the finals or got to the semis, but she had a long run at the Australian Open. But, she didn't know Matt from the Man in the Moon, but he just went out on the court. And the first thing he said to her was, let's just rally up the middle and see who misses first. And he just went out with the idea, I'm not missing one ball. You've got to be consistent. You got to have defense. And I think that's where, you rally to 100, rally to 1,000. That's where we've said it many times on these podcasts. Harold Solomon brought his grandson by to be filmed. He's top 5 in the world. And 3 times a week, he hit 1,000 balls in a row. If you miss it 999, you start again. Go ahead. Give us another couple here. What number you got?
I think it's something like so simple, right? It's like so simple. Go rally and just don't miss.
And I think that's where kids get
bored. People get bored with it, right? It's like no, it's not boring. You gotta love to hit the ball. You gotta love to hit balls.
I think people can get programmed out, lessoned out. Like, let's just go rally. Get to the program early. The practice starts this summer at 9. Get a hitting partner. Hit with anybody, no matter who you're hitting with. I always tell the player has a little more experience. They're hitting with the inexperienced players. If they miss, it's your fault. Make the ball come back. Put the ball on a dime. All right, another number.
For sure. Let's go 80.
The Miami call. It could be the Moscow call. I don't want to pick on any cities, but your player is always asking, what's the score? It could be deuce, and the person just looks over. Oh, it's love 40. If you don't know the score, it just gives your. It's not a sign of street smarts. It's a little, you're pure, you're innocent, you're naive. Oh, what's the score? You have to know the score. If you ask them what the score is, there's a very good chance that they're going to change it on you. What's your comment on that?
On what's the score?
Yeah.
I always like to know what the score is. So I think if you don't know the score, you're lost in La La Land. For me, I want to know the score and everything. As you mentioned earlier, like I'm super competitive, and I feel like there's got to be a mindset of the score in terms of anything you do. So for me, I only do things to keep track of score. I want to know everything that's going on.
Yeah,
if you don't know the score, then you got issues. You can't compete.
I really side with the parents on this. They told their kids so many times to announce the score, but they don't. Yvonne, give me a number.
Give you 33.
33. 31 right above 33 is very good. Your routines need to become rules. But here's one for you, Miron. Little kid tennis and big kid tennis. You got to know the difference, and you want to play big kid tennis.
Yeah, you gotta begin with the end in mind. What happens. No one remembers the best 12-year-old in the world. No one will remember the name of the best 12-year-old in the world, right? So it's about kind of thinking big picture and developing your skills to not be that best 12-year-old. You want to develop your skills to be the best 20-year-old, 22-year-old, 24-year-old, play on TV, play on the WTA Tour or the ATP Tour, whatever you strive for, right? So, just building the biggest toolkit you can at a younger age is going to allow you to play big kid tennis down the road. And, I think too often, I think one, it starts with the parents, and then it trickles down to the kids. Too often, winning is emphasized way too young, rather than emphasizing skill development and acquiring as many skills as possible and trying to be as efficient as possible technically to play big kid tennis down the road.
No, it's great input. Let's go two more. Go ahead, Ivan. Give me a number.
64.
Got the right page here. How to question a call.
Simple. Take your racket out of a non-dominant hand, pick it up, walk straight up to the net, stick your chest out, look at your opponent, ask them, are you sure that ball was out? And be demonstrative about it. You have to have a presence on the court. You have to look intimidating. If you don't question the call, you're going to get cheated over and over and over again. Someone's going to walk all over you. And it's kind of like that in life, right? It's a life lesson too when you question calls. So, you have to be demonstrative. You have to have a presence. You have to speak up for yourself. And the more you do that, the less likely they're going to do it again.
Yeah, your player would not question a call. I remember I was fortunate to spend 3 days with Jimmy Everett, Chris Everett's father. Chris Everett was taught, give them the look. Most kids will just, are you sure? But yeah, just take your time, walk up to the net, look right at the line call, and say, are you sure about that call? And then look back at the line call again. And you have to have a number. It's either 2 or 3. So if you get cheated twice, you don't lose your cool. Arthur Ashe used to say, you can lose the point, but don't lose your cool. Just look at your opponent. So I think it'd be much better if we had someone calling the lines. Then you go back. But you definitely, like you said, you have to walk forward, and you just give it a look. I mean, then you have to decide. Well, like Nick Bollettieri used to say, why don't you say, "Are you going to be able to sleep tonight? You got a conscience?" And then just kind of smile. But just make a point of it. But I think actually then afterwards, kids are so dramatic. One of your players, we were watching a junior from the Australian Open, and I was just looking at what matches were available to watch, and he goes, "Hey, I played that player." So I said, "Okay, let's watch the player." And he takes out the phone and he shows me that one of his friends filmed a bad line call. And I said, "I wish you didn't do that." I said, I don't think that you lost to that young kid. If he's playing the Australian Open and you're sitting next to me in Wintergreen, Virginia, I don't think you lost that match because the kid made a bad call. And give us another one, Ivan. Numbers.
Let's go with 119.
119.
Comes after 118.
I plus I plus I equals I. A little slow on that, senior moment. Information, ideas, and insights equal instincts. You think about telling the player we're referring to is only 11, but you just got to, they're sponges, they may not understand now, but I'm going to tell them now, and but what do you think of that? I plus I plus I equals I. I mean, what do you think of players? Do they really understand a young 11-year-old when you say, "Hey, you got to develop good instincts"?
I don't. I think they could. I think it has to be the parents have to buy in too, right? Like I think I told you this, Steve. Like this young player, she goes out, plays a tournament this past weekend, and the parents charting how many times she goes to the net, how many times she's getting a chance to develop her instincts. And I think first match, she's playing like low level under 16 tournament. She's 11, but it's a low level one. So the first match she goes out, she goes to the net 25 times, and I think she won like 13 points. The next match she goes to the net 20 times and she wins 14 points. But the idea is that there's no worry on the outcome. It's just like, okay, I'm going to work on going to the net. I'm going to work on developing instincts to attack. And the more I do it, the better I'm going to get. And it's okay if you lose. And it's okay if things don't go your way, right? But you're allowing yourself to learn. I think powerful when something like that happens. Like, you don't see that very often, right?
No, for sure. I like the, long-term vision, fact-based instruction for long-term vision. Give us one more, Ivan.
Let's see. Let's go low here. I'm going to go with 6.
First page.
You should find this one, Steve.
Yeah. PPP, parental permission for pounding. What comes to your mind?
Well, I think my mom gave me a parental permission to pound. I think you got to be tough as a parent, like you can't let your kids walk all over you. You got to demand respect. You got to demand discipline. You got to, you got to establish a culture in the house, especially if you want your kid to be a competitive athlete on any sport, right? The parents have to understand what needs to happen if they want their kids to be successful in anything. So,
yeah,
the coach can bark as much as they want, but if the kid goes home and the parents are soft and easy on the kids, then it doesn't work. Like you have the kids 24/7 when they go and visit you. For here, they come. I would consider myself tough, but when they come and they see me for 2-3 hours, and then they go home, and if there's not a similar message of discipline or respect or culture of work ethic, then it doesn't matter, really.
Yeah, Don Staley. I've got it correct. I brought this up before on a podcast. Don Staley with a T. And since then, listen to her on YouTube. I mean, there's so many good things on YouTube. But what she said, if the child doesn't respect the parents, if there's not respect, we have no chance. We have no chance in developing that player. The hockey song.
She's an amazing coach.
Yeah,
that woman.
Yeah, the culture. Daniel Kroll's book, The Talent Code. I think the parents, PPP, parental mission for pounding, is make that car a classroom. And I think also to a message for the parents, hey, kids don't come with directions, but you're going down the road for the very first time. I mean, have you been down this road before? Have you, is this your first time? I'd never heard Mark Bay said that as a guest on our podcast, where every 8 years is a generation. The 12s, the 14s, the 16s, and 18s. So, he's been coaching quite some time. I'm probably, at least 10 plus years older than he is. So, yeah, you're on your, what are you on, your 6th generation then? Your 5th generation? Where are you at, Steve? I'm up there. With, but I think actually for me though, I was born in a jackocracy, and coming from a hockey family where my father was a volunteer coach, just lived hockey, and certainly back in the day he played other sports, but no, I think it's the parents. I think today too many times they're really letting the kid make a fool of them. I mean, it needs to, it comes down to.
I heard a story. I don't know if this is true, but Layla Fernandez, right?
Yeah.
I heard a story that when she was like 10 or 11, she was at a tournament, like misbehaving and throwing a racket and acting like a baby, and the dad just pulled her off the court and defaulted from the tournament. And I think since that day, she'll probably never behave like that again, right?
Yeah.
So pretty powerful when you hear it like that.
That message is, it needs to happen early. I ask kids today, what's it mean to get cut? And they don't know. They think, well, I need to get a Band-Aid. That you go out for a team, and your name is cut off the list. Like Michael Jordan had, moved down to the JVs. With just players like John Havlicek in basketball. I mean, Dick Stockton basketball. They got cut. They said, well, you're not good enough to make the team this time around. I was actually in Toronto, and you just pay for the ice time. So my son Connor was just 5, and there's a tryout for 6-year-olds, and he got cut. Where my oldest son, I mean, he made the team. They won the provincial championships, and as we drove away, I said, Connor, your athletic career has already surpassed mine, because I was never cut. I mean, think, okay, go to prep school. I went to college. Okay, made the first team, but if an athlete says, that's just it's really the reverse of the macho male ego. Usually, a lot of men, the older they get, the better they were. But I was never cut. But I told my 5-year-old kid, okay, your athletic career has surpassed mine, because he was told he wasn't good enough. Yeah, I just simply wasn't trying out for the most elite prep school or the most elite college, but let's wrap this thing up, Miron. It's always great to talk to you. I mean, with 30 years in tennis and going strong. With Ivan's doing quite well with his 3 years in tennis. I was really impressed with. Again, I would have people with Ivan, his points, like stop and write that down. A student of the game. We do have people that these podcasts are long, and people tell us keep plugging them out and keep them long. But it is hard to take notes if you're listening while you're running errands or listening while you're driving a car around. But very powerful information, Ivan. And Ivan, thanks or I should say, Miron, thanks so much for helping us out.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I think there's so many pearls of wisdom there, But yeah, I think you got to listen and re-listen, not just need to hear it over and over again.
Yeah, you only know it if you can say it. You only know it if you can show it, and that's. We started these podcasts just one a week. I didn't know I was getting into this. Andy Fitzel. So his wife, she parents are older. He goes back to Germany, and so I said to Andy, "Well, how often should we do the podcast?" He said, "Once a week." I said, "Okay." With we're up 199. You said, is that right? Yeah, we're 200. We want to change the format and do things a little bit differently, try to improve. But no, I know some young coaches, young players. Once we started this, they should have kept listening to them, because it takes like 1% of your week, and our podcast is much different. Many podcasts in tennis, it's talking to people that are connected to the world tours, WTA, ATP. Daniel Kiernan, he doesn't remember, but when he was a 13-year-old, Dave Anderson and I worked with him for a month, English guy, and he's got a clever thing at the end of his podcast. He says, okay, pass it baton. So he's, maybe he's interviewing Kevin Anderson and say, who can you get for me? So he has all these, which is great. I mean, I love to listen to commentators, but we've had, I think even like a 13-year-old teenager on this. So just trying to help tennis out, just sharing information from the past. Someone who told me one time, he goes, well, I think you really need new stuff. And I go, no, I don't think we need new stuff. With, people trying to reinvent the wheel. Makes no sense for everybody to add their own 2 cents. Be brilliant with basics. Okay, should we end up with that last hockey song?
We can, yeah.
You have something else?
I just took notes as we were talking.
Okay, all right. Our scholar from Southern Cal, this guy actually, bright guy. Go ahead, rattle it off.
Yeah, just some notable things I had during the podcast. I just wrote them down to review. Stay-at-home defenseman. With your build, Miron, you should have been a football player.
Hockey. Hockey defenseman. Go ahead.
Football, hockey, same thing.
Yeah. Friends, but enemies with Mario.
Yeah, I like that.
If I'm 82, why do I feel like I'm 22? Wasn't wrong in principle in regards to the kickboxing story. 18 years old at 13. New game called Thunderball. They might not go into the corner. They might go into the corner, but they won't necessarily come out of the corner. Looking to force, it's not in his DNA. A player has no air force. Man uses 10% of the mind, 10% of their mind, 10% of the time. More time to hit your crummy backhand. Athletes with a racket. Backhand volley is like chopping trees. Compete to the best of your ability. Everything you do with a winning mindset. You're not giving yourself a chance to play tennis. No awe factor. Got to love to hit balls. Begin with the end in mind. No one will remember the name of the best 12-year-old. Speak up for yourself in tennis, same as in life. You can lose the point, but don't lose your cool. Information, ideas, and insights equal instincts. PPP, parental permission for pounding. With that last comment, we have parents come in, drop off their players, sometimes stay with us, and I know the parent knows what's up when let's say they're dropping their player off. They're leaving the door and they look at me and they lean in and they say, "You have PPP." I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is okay. Sounds good."
I would say this as we go to this last hockey zone. Our amateur hour. You gotta make sure you get the opposite, the next one, right? You got it. You know which one it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so so many of your players, Aiden Malik, all the players, but Aiden Malik, he'll do it. They really, even if they have to just wait to the finals, you're especially on the boys' side, they should take some time and come on, guys, even just a period is watch ice hockey. I mean, actually, for me, I think of being in Asia, being in Europe, and watching professional soccer. Watching on TV, I never really had appreciation for it. If hockey players could see it live across the street from Mayfair West, I was there many times with juniors from Richmond Hill, and I said, "All right, guys, come with me. It won't be a good meal, but I'll take you out to eat between your matches." And I'd pay. It was like $1 for each kid to get in and buy him a hot dog. But we'd go across the street from Mayfair West to Chesswood, and I would take the Canadian take the Canadian tennis players to go watch hockey. And you were probably one of them back in the day.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah. It's a religion in Canada. But the Canadians, years ago, had a inferiority complex in tennis. They still and always will have a superiority complex in hockey. But no, the hungry immigrants that put Canada on the map. And, I think it's better now because so many years ago, like Richard did such a great job teaching, kids up to the age of 14, but they were just hell bent on going to Florida. Tennis players come from everywhere. But Miron, let's have one personal question. Your wife and 2 daughters, do you get a vote?
They're too young for me to get a vote yet. We'll see.
We'll see. All right.
But right now I got 3 ladies in the house and myself.
And the two little ones, they have you. They have Big Miron wrapped around the finger. Are you a softie at home?
I don't think so. But they're too young for me to know.
How old are they?
Too young for me to know.
They're too young.
My oldest Olivia is 2.5, and my youngest Esme is 1.
Oh, okay.
So
some.
My oldest is doing gymnastics.
That's good.
She's into something already.
So the story will unfold, but let's pay tribute to Canada. We'll end off with more music because you say you don't want to sing, right?
No.
You
really want me to, I can, but
this is a great song for a hockey player's funeral. Go ahead.
Hello out there, we're on the air. It's hockey night tonight. Tension grows, the whistle blows, and the puck is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Second period, where players dash with skates aflash. The home team trails behind, but they grab the puck and go bursting up, and they're down across the line. They storm the crease like bumblebees. They travel like a burning flame. We see them slide the puck inside. It's a 1-1 hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game.
The good old hockey
Is the best game you can name.
game.
And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game.
The good old hockey game.
Love Toronto.
Third period.
What a place. What a
Last game
place.
of the playoffs, too. Oh, take me where the hockey players face off down the rink, and the Stanley Cup is all filled up for the champs who win the drink. Now the final flick of a hockey stick and a one gigantic scream. The puck is in. The home team wins the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey
I have to make this comment with Andy Fitzell. I was talking to someone about the podcast, and this woman who is an expert in podcasts, she said, "You don't really need to film." Then Andy said, "Yes, you have to film." But with my beautiful face, I have been looking at the camera more so than normal on these podcasts because we have the hockey game on right here. And but anyway, from the Great White North, Miron Mann, Richmond Hill Tennis Club. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Another marathon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, another marathon podcast. But I think the most important thing is in the Great White North, don't eat any yellow snow. But yeah, and Miron, thanks. It was great. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Miron.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
I think we have to wave to the camera and say thank you, everybody, because we always want to beat that 3-hour mark.
Yeah.
I think what you had to say about tennis, I mean, young tennis minds, we need to help young people. You're only in your 20s. It's just great to have you share that type of knowledge, and young coaches listening to this. Better to know than not to know. Adios, amigos. Good
Adios.
night. Thanks, Ivan. Miron.